But still.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. It is, what's lunch? 6:33, and it is August 1st, 2024. And I'll first do the roll call. So Terry Warner,
Here.
Matthew McGovern,
Here.
Laura Sanchez Fowler,
Here.
Mike McLeod,
Here.
Sam Houston Clinton,
Here.
and I'm Catherine Glaze, the mayor. So please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I just motioned.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And please remain standing for the invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, thank you so much for the recent rain. And Heavenly Father, we do pray for more rain. And Heavenly Father, we do thank you for all of the excitement that we're having in town. And I just pray, Lord God, that it reflects well on you. And Heavenly Father, we just ask that you help us to discern all of these decisions that we need to make tonight. And as always, I thank you for the gift of salvation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, we do have some public comments. I think Susan has left, so I'll read her comment. For the second time, I am requesting that you clean up the citizen comment section of the agenda. For this meeting, the first sentence makes no sense at all. Also, both this notice and the one for the special meeting are providing false information to the public by stating that these are online meetings for which comments may only be submitted in writing and that only the first 10 comments will be read. Finally, please add the provision from the 2019 law allowing citizens to comment on agenda items. We have changed the public comment section. It was several weeks ago, actually. I think it was a little confusing. What it was trying to say is that you could comment on whatever's on the agenda plus anything else. And it has caused some confusion. So we have looked at that several times and we've been working on it and hope to make it better. Okay, so the next one is Mary Beth. Oh, yeah. It's good to see your arm out of this sling.
Yes.
If not well. I got a long way to go still. Okay, anyway, first of all, a little bit of humor. The TV series that's being filmed is kind of ironic of the first three buildings right here. This one is the gun shop. Next door is the embalming studio, mortuary. So the gun shop, if you're in a gunfight and you're not successful, you end up there. Next door. But if you survive the gun shop, you get to go to the drugstore, which is where the library is.
It is funny.
It's healthcare in 1923. Okay, so the upcoming events the library is sponsoring. Okay, first of all, on Saturday, August 10th, is the health and wellness fair from 9 to 1. There are lots of vendors, a lot of free stuff can be handed out. There's a Blue Cross Bear for little kids. Alligator Dental will be there. Area agency on aging, that's for us old people. And this is funded by a grant from St. David's Foundation. And then on September 20th and 21st is a river appreciation event. The library was asked to host the mermaids from San Marcos. They come down, read stories to the children, and kids have a lot of fun. San Marcos is not having their big mermaid event this year, so there'll be lots of San Marcos people down here who enjoy the mermaids. Then on September 28th weekend is the Terry Hendricks's OYOU event. And she also has lots of people who comes into town and they have sales tax. Okay, we'll talk about sales tax. Okay, then on the library information itself. The library relies heavily on grants for our programming. The grants do not pay for staff salaries, target phone bill, utilities, everyday kinds of stuff. It pays for specific items. And now national grants include Save the Children, and this pay for our summer reading program. Also the reading prizes, actual programs for the children and adults. The AARP tax aid came down and did the taxes for people. The total refunds for this community was $250,000. That's a lot of money to return to this community. Okay, St. David's Foundation.
I'm sorry, can I just, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want you to be able to explain so I understand well. The 250,000, you were saying the total returns to the community. So you mean the total number of grant funded dollars?
No, but not grants. That's tax dollars.
Okay,
Individuals.
gotcha.
Tax.
Who pay things? Got you. Thank you. See, I needed to know that.
You listen, guys.
Thank you.
You be a good student.
Thank you.
Also, we've received, from the St. David's Foundation, they've really have helped us with a lot of our mental health. We have a mental health specialist and it's funded through St. David's. And Martindale is considered to be a healthcare desert. There's no doctor, there's no pharmacy, no healthcare at all. So we're a healthcare desert. So they've been really helpful with us. We've received 10 to 15 letters of support for our library. And last week, y'all received letters from Poppy Hayden, who's the Caldwell County Judge, and also from Sally Daniel, who's chair of the Caldwell County Community Services Foundation. Also, there are grants that are later that if the library is approved for a grant, city funding will not be decreased. Let me repeat that. City funding will not be decreased. Okay, we received information today that the Talker Foundation, they're going to give us $13,000 for new computers. The old ones were destroyed with the lightning strike and they're so old, there's no parts or anything to fix them. Anyway, Mayor Blaze did sign one of these letters that said city funding will not be decreased because of the grant we received. Okay, now our contract, y'all got this contract last week. The library agrees to operate a free accredited public library. They're free, we don't charge for a library card or for late books. San Marcos does, they charge $50 a year. Lockhart charges something, plus you have to drive to those locations. A lot of people in this town cannot afford the card or they have ability to drive there. Okay, accredited, we must follow the Texas State Library and Archives Commission and the American Library Association guidelines to remain accredited. They have both quantitative and qualitative standards so we can remain accredited. If we lose accreditation, we cannot apply for any of our large and national grants. Okay, so far this year, and this is only like the first 6 months of the year, we've received 66,000 and 16,000 just this week, and that includes that Talker grant. But again, these are used for specific funds, not for salaries and everyday items for the library. And one of the big items that being accredited is to have public Wi-Fi. We use this Wi-Fi. Okay, numerous students have come down here and used our Wi-Fi to do their homework. During COVID, several teachers parked across the street and taught their classes, their online classes, using our Wi-Fi. Even a university professor held a class using our Wi-Fi. And you all mentioned several times that come down here and use the library's Wi-Fi to sign up for Works Mobile. Right? That's why we're accredited, so y'all can use our Wi-Fi. Okay, and we are a public library. That means any person can come in to use a library unless you're a felon. Now, private libraries would be like a law library, a medical library. An academic library would be like University of Texas or Texas State. Okay, finally, back to the contract. Once the library does all that, then the city has to fund the library $24,000. And the library also has to use the restroom and also usually city funds. Okay, please keep the library's fund allotted amount on mind as they need it desperately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is for Sonia.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sonia.
Council members, Mayor, Sonia Villalobos, Martindale resident. I'm kind of like here just on behalf to give you information about the River Appreciation Event, which is how it's worded now, and just to kind of give you some insight on where we're at today with this proposal. So it's been over 2 months ago that I took off of work to come and address the River Advisory Board to kind of like get the ball rolling, which it started rolling. And then this was in order so we could try to attain some funding as we did last year for the event, which it was a very successful event. And I was told to go to Craig and Tamari, that I would have to approach them because they're the ones that are taking care of the funding now. And there was an email that was sent, that was circulated, that was stated that they would not be funding any events until 2025. So automatically is, why would I do this 25-page proposal if there's not going to be any funding? So Chelsea and I, we said, well, the city, and after I found that out, I came back to the mayor and I was like, Mayor, is there any way, because Mari and Craig's organization has not officially been, it has been passed on the agenda, could the city council take this up? And she was stated that no, that it had to go before them. So I felt defeated because like everywhere I went, it seemed like I was being told no for this river event that we wanted to do here in Martindale, which is to promote Martindale, because we love Martindale and it's our community. And Chelsea and I have our reasons like why we do it, and we do it like to honor our mother, like the river. The river, it's like deeper to us. It's just not like a $10 parking and come and chill out by the river. Like we have more, not saying we have more ties than anybody else, but we just tend to look at it differently. So we have our reason on why we honor our water. So it was fine. I appreciated the mayor's time. I appreciated the emails, the information. So Chelsea and I was like, okay, then we'll go ahead and we'll set a date. We spoke with Carlton. He was going to donate the green space in the building. But that means with funding, that means me funding it. That means me asking Chelsea to fund it. That means me asking Matthew to fund it, which he offered like to do 200. And that means asking the River Awareness movie, the motion picture that's in your anniversary. So there was things that we were gonna have to ask to like not have a part of it. But that's just because like we're paying for it. We paid for the first one. We paid.
May I interrupt? It is on the agenda tonight. We had set a certain amount of expectation for the river, for the Visit Martindale. So we felt like we had to have those same standards for this event also. And so we sent those out, and as we were doing the agenda, we didn't think that they could get back to us in time, but they pretty much did. And so Deanna came back after she was already home, and we made a second agenda. So you'll see 2 agendas for tonight, and the second agenda is just to deal with the river appreciation funding.
And which I greatly appreciate. I am totally grateful that it's on there. I'm hopeful that it is, because everything that we do for our community wholeheartedly. But it was just like a matter of me, y'all know what I would say on there. It's like, I like to receive my documents ahead of time. I need to be able to read this. So if you got a 26-page proposal in your email yesterday or today, if I would have known like earlier that you needed it before, I would have done it before. So my apologies about that, but I do want to thank the city council for considering this. And I know that Matthew has been instrumental. His wife Dorothy has been instrumental. Chelsea has been instrumental. Joy has, like we want this to happen for the city of Martindale. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sam Clinton.
Good evening, fellow city council members, members of the public. Terry, hello. My friend over here too. So yes, we're talking about the budget tonight. The budget of the city of Austin is $5 billion. Our budget is less than $1 million. And I'm glad to see that we're putting our heads together and working on it, and that we have representatives from the library tonight, representatives from our social functions here, and concerns about our roads. And I am always concerned about the parks. So I'm glad we're speaking about these things tonight. Our budget is less than $1 million. We're talking a lot about sales tax tonight, and the 20% sales tax that is automatically sliced off of our funds from the state comptroller towards the monies that we're still paying for the speeding ticket fines, which is about 250,000, I think now. So that is something we're going to have to continually pay off on a 15-year basis. And even though it is no interest, no penalty fine that we are paying off, I would love to pay off fines quicker. I was at home the other day and I had an old wind chime, and I was working on this old wind chime, and it was all tangled up. It's all in strings. It's all a mess. But it sort of sounds nice. Does this sound nice?
Yes.
So I sort of had this analogy with Martindale. Are we gonna try and untangle this wind chime tonight and make it sound better? Or are we gonna restring this wind chime and put all new strings and still use the same wind chime? There is a part of the wind chime though that is separate that seems to function, but doesn't sound right to me. This possibly could sound better if we restring it, and just, let's not keep untangling these strings to make our wind chimes work. This is an old wind chime. Let's make it sound better. And if we even decide to do away with the wind chime completely and buy a new wind chime, then let's spend the money on that wind chime. But I got frustrated trying to untangle this wind chime. I spent about 5 minutes doing that. So let's all put our heads together and decide, are we gonna untangle our wind chime? Are we gonna restring it? Or are we gonna start over? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, at this time, Ashley Guerrero, the library director, has asked to do a presentation.
I promise I'll try to be as brief as possible.
Whoops.
Don't mind me. It was bound to happen.
Only when you don't want to have to bend down.
That's real easy when you're done.
Yep.
So, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to again speak with you this week. Before we get started, I just had 2 handouts that I really wanted to pass out to everybody. The first one is our projected 2025 budget. This was recently approved by our by our library board. So if you wouldn't mind, Mr. McLeod, just passing that to me.
One each.
Yes, sir. And then the second handout is just a brief list of benefits that we receive from being accredited. And this is from the Texas State Library and Archives Commission. Thank you. So as we discussed our programs last week, that's actually our first slide. I promise to be very brief here. I just want to illustrate to you how heavily we rely on grant funding and donations for our program throughout the year. If you could go ahead and go to the first slide.
I'll do that.
Oh, sorry. Jump back just a little bit. I know these things are painful sometimes. Thank you. Okay, so for here, I just wanted to point out that all of the programs that are in black are programs that are either partially or fully funded by grants or donations. So if we were to lose accreditation, almost all of these programs would be gone. I did also want to highlight that in 2023, we offered a total of 108 different programs to the community, and these brought in a total of 1,500 people that attended, which was actually 47 more programs this past year than in 2022. So we are always working towards expanding our programs. You can go ahead and move on to the next slide. Next, we are going to talk very briefly again about our event highlights as well as the benefits that programs provide to our community as a whole. So if you look over to the photo right up at the top, you'll see our little Easter bunnies. This is from our second annual Easter egg hunt. We had a blast. And if you look over to the photo right next to it to the right, that is actually where we were paid a visit by our furry friends from the Tiny Tales 2 Traveling Petting Zoo from Austin. We were able to have that program thanks to the Safe Children grant that we received for summer reading. And they actually funded our entire summer reading program this year, which was a huge blessing for us. And then also, if you look down over to the little tug of war tournament taking place, so that was actually our second annual library field day event. We are hoping to have more. We love the fact that we're able to get our kiddos out and about and basically enjoying the scenery that nature that Martindale has to provide us, and also coming together as a community. Let's see, I apologize, my contacts are a little blurry. It's a side effect of pregnancy, so I'm trying to look over.
The one on the bottom right is from Kite Day. Those are our volunteers.
Thank you. Yes,
Oh, wow.
ma'am. We have a wonderful group of, it's the Phi Gamma Delta and the Omega Chi sorority from Texas State. We have truly been blessed. They have helped us out at all of our big programs throughout the year. And so without them, we would not be able to do what we've been doing. Oh, and then I also did want to mention that we have a blast every year during our Christmas crafts and our letters to Santa, and this takes place during our downtown tree lighting event, which I believe is that middle picture on the bottom. Okay, and now I just wanted to talk very briefly about the benefits that having these programs provide to our community as a whole. We do feel that these are an essential service that we are able to provide to Martindale citizens for a number of reasons. One of these benefits is that it fosters community support and engagement. Our library essentially acts as a community center. We're able to gather people together for events where they can happily participate, and they can also engage in civic discussions that we have. Another benefit is the promotion of literacy, education, and lifelong learning. The library provides resources and programs for all ages. This ranges from early childhood literacy programs like story time to our adult education classes. And then we also provide social services to our community in a number of ways. This includes, but is not limited to, providing resources to individuals currently experiencing homelessness, as well as promoting food insecurity through the use of our food pantry now, and offering health and wellness programs such as our upcoming health and wellness fair that Mary Beth mentioned, and our peer support specialist program. So we are very grateful to St. David's Foundation. We are actually one of 10 participating libraries that's part of the Libraries for Health initiative. And so through this funding, we are able to have a peer support specialist on hand. And basically, she offers mental health awareness resources and things of that nature. In addition to this, we also serve vulnerable populations by offering homebound services to patrons in need and introducing them to our Book Buddies program. And so basically what Book Buddies is we have a set of books at the library that can be checked out. And then for the patrons that do not want to leave their homes currently for whatever reason, We are able to take them to them. They are able to read the books, and then they call one another and they have discussions over the books. So it's a really nice way to promote engagement at home. And then we also discussed the importance of environmental sustainability through our partnership in the Mermaid Society's Youth Eco Guardianship Program. And this provides children's books promoting stewardship. I just brought a few, promoting stewardship, water conservation, and the protection and preservation of our rivers. We have also hosted a number of Mermaid Society story times where they teach our children all about river ecosystems. And as Miss Sonia mentioned, we will be having the Mermaid Society come in again during the River Appreciation event. And so they come decked out in their fins. The kids absolutely love it. And we will be reading books again and discussing the importance of river ecology and also doing arts and crafts. And I apologize if I sound a little winded. It's kind of hard to breathe right now. Okay. So, and then I also wanted to mention too, that we promote cultural enrichment, awareness, and appreciation by hosting performers and cultural programs, such as the dedication of the Seed Library by local artist Augustine Gutz Chavez, and the amazing performance by the Danzantes dancers. And this was a way for them to celebrate their heritage through dance. We are planning on providing more cultural programs in the future. I am hoping, I believe I spoke on this briefly last week. I am hoping to bring in a bilingual story time. I am conversational in Spanish. Unfortunately, I'm not fluent. So I don't feel comfortable enough doing it myself right now, but we did have a young woman from Texas State who would love to work with us. And so we are planning on starting a bilingual story time at least once a month. And if it's successful, I would like to do it once every 2 weeks if possible. And we are working towards receiving a grant, and this will help fund, they are the art exhibitions. And so we'll be purchasing partitions. One of the exhibitions that we want to bring in is, it's a Holocaust display. And so we are looking forward to moving forward with that program as well. And then I just wanted to let y'all know too, through our programs, of course, we're able to provide access to information and resources, as well as provide entertainment in a fun space for families to get together, for everybody to be together as a community. Okay, and now we can go ahead and move on to the next slide. And of course, this is going to be a bit of a reiteration as to what Mary Beth has already mentioned. But our library provides a number of free services to the community. And this actually takes on a different meaning for me. I've previously worked at the Smithville Public Library as well as the Bastrop Public Library. And both of these libraries have quite a bit more funding made available to them than a library the size of Martindale does. And we charge for basically everything. Copies were 10 to 15 cents a page for black and white. Color was always at least $1 to $2. And of course, towards the end of my time at Bastrop, we started charging non-resident fees for patrons. And so I think that this is such a valuable service to provide to our community. The fact that we're able to have everything free. So as well as the free library card, we also do not charge late fees, which is wonderful. We provide access to materials, and these are physical materials, including our books, DVDs, magazines, and so forth. And then we also have an extensive ebook and audiobook collection through Overdrive. We are part of the Central Texas Digital Consortium. And so together, our total items in our collection, both physical and digital, are 27,443 that we're able to provide to the members of Martindale. We also, due to our accreditation status, we also have access to the TechShare databases, which is wonderful, and it's used a lot for academic research, especially with our students from Texas State University and others surrounding areas. We provide free computer, printer, and scanning services. Now, I do have a number below. This is unfortunately a little outdated. The Wi-Fi, the hardware that we used to use, our IT support person ended up updating them. And so he can no longer track the number of annual Wi-Fi sessions. So the last number that we actually have on hand is from 2021, and it's 18,649 sessions, and these are unique user sessions. I would love to find a way to get a more updated number, but as for right now, I just wanted you to have that in mind. And then, of course, Mary Beth already mentioned tax preparation assistance. We have a wonderful partnership with AARP Foundation. And so, of course, they come in every tax season and they prepare taxes for our citizens. This year, we served 309 taxpayers, which was amazing. We also used the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, and we actually received this. This offers Martindale's children ages 0 through 5 a free book every month. We received this due to a very generous donation from one of our local families. So without that donation, we would not be able to provide this to the kiddos. Of course, peer support specialist, I've already mentioned that. And then also the preservation of our local history and historical documents is extremely important to me. At the Bastrop Public Library, I was the circulation manager and the head cataloger. And so I was in charge of the local history collection. And especially coming to Martindale, I am blown away by its rich history. And I believe in the importance of preserving our past and making it available to our future generations. So, and so we are planning on growing our local history collection. If you have any historical documents that you would like us to take care of, we will.
Maybe you guys could partner with the Historic Preservation Commission, because that's also like, that's a dual, you're kind of, you know what I mean, dovetailing. So that would be perfect.
Thank you. It's a gesture.
I had a question. It says 9,854 books and magazines in the collection. Do you have a knowledge base of how many books? I mean, because when I go in there, of course, you see beautiful shelves of books all in glossy book covers and all that on both sides. And first, I will commend you on all the children's programs, the arts and crafts, the music sessions, all of those things. But I sometimes, as you mentioned, that it does seem more like somewhat of a community center as opposed to people that come and just check out, you know, because years ago, I used to go and just check out this many books and I'd be carrying it all home. So what information do you have of how many books are checked out and returned, say, on a monthly or weekly basis?
So we use the library ILS system. It is the Biblionics Apollo system. And so we keep track of everything. We have circulation reports, of course, overall material collection reports. And so we can pull up any of those reports at any given time.
But you see more of that, say, checking out of books, locals or kids or parents come in, or?
Probably more online books. Because what we found at the San Marcos Library is that the face of libraries had to kind of change. Like you've already mentioned with the Wi-Fi and everything, we had to get more computers and just more books that were downloadable, which I know you have access to also. And people are actually listening to books more than they are actually reading them.
Okay.
I've
Thank you.
noticed too, and this of course pertains mostly to summer, but we have seen a huge influx of families coming in, wanting the cards. And the best thing about that is that I'd say probably half are local Martindale residents that had no idea the library even existed, which I always find funny. Just a little side anecdote. I cannot tell you how often, if you've ever been to the Bastrop Public Library, it's beautiful. They finished their renovations in 2007, and it's a big building. I can't tell you how many people would come up to me out of the reference desk and tell me, or ask me, when did you open? And I was like, oh, we've been around forever. Really? And it's funny because it happens here too, but I understand why. But we've had a lot of families discovering the library here, as well as people coming in from Hayes County, Guadalupe, and other surrounding areas. So we've seen quite an influx of families coming in to get cards, either the kiddos getting cards or every member getting cards so that they can check out more items at one time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, then we can move on to the next slide.
And I think the events too, people come for the events more.
Oh,
Like when I was a kid, I don't remember the library having all that many of them. So the libraries have just changed.
okay, and so for our library operating expenditures for 2023, we had $57,050 in library operating expenditures, and this was on a $21,000 budget. I apologize, my contacts. We are very appreciative of any funding, city funding that we have received to help cover some of these costs. It is a huge blessing. I did want to mention very briefly regarding grant funds because they are so important to us as an organization. Last year, we received 11 grants and these totaled $55,415. Now, of these 11 grants, 6 of them were actually accreditation grants and these totaled about $48,000. Now, I just wanted to point this out that if we were not accredited, we would not be eligible to apply for any of these and we would not receive, be eligible to receive that funding. So having accreditation, being able to go after these types of grants is a godsend to us. And now most of these grants, because I have it up top in parentheses, our grant funds are essentially restricted funds. So that means that most of them are designated for specific purposes. Normally we are able to receive a number of book buying grants or book purchasing grants. Also, we have applied for some regarding programming. However, the majority of them cannot be used for salary or daily operating costs, which is where we really need assistance sometimes.
So all of them prohibit indirect funds?
Not all of them. So last year we did receive one. It was from the Caldwell County Community Services Foundation.
Mhm.
So that one did actually cover a really nice portion of the operating costs. But overall, usually the ones that we end up receiving will not cover salary or operating costs at all.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of where we get hit the hardest,
Mhm.
essentially.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready to move on to the next slide. And so without accreditation, as I just previously mentioned, we would lose a lot of the grant opportunities that are currently made available to us due to our accreditation status. Our library programs, as you can see from the first slide, since all of our programs are in some way either funded partially or fully by grants or through donations, our programs and services would greatly suffer because we would not have enough funding to actually continue providing these quality services to the community. And then of course, the AARP Foundation, we would lose their partnership and they would no longer be able to provide tax assistance to our community, which would greatly negatively affect our community as well. And then we will no longer be eligible for the E-rate funding. Right now, it's basically a discount of $17,800 that we receive since we're accredited and we're able to apply for the E-rate funding. So we actually—
Wait, is the E-rate funding related to the ARPA, I'm sorry, the AARP tax preparation, or
No.
it's separate?
It is separate.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We do mention it hand in hand though, because if we don't have the funds, the E-rate discount, which right now we pay roughly $69 a month. We pay 10% of what we would have to pay usually for our monthly internet bill if we didn't have E-rate to fall back on. We would basically lose our internet. And so then AARP Foundation would not be able to do tax.
Because they can't do their tax because you
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
have internet to transmit things.
And
Gotcha.
we would also not have our secure networks in place anymore.
Oh, right, right,
Unfortunately.
of course.
And so in providing our library funding, the city is really getting more bang for your buck. And we try to provide a great return on your investment. we're really trying to do everything in our power to provide more programs, more services to keep them free to our community. Okay, moving on to the next one. Thank you. Okay, and so as for our budget request, we're requesting the same amount that we received this year. This money will cover my salary, which is $24,000. And this will also ensure that a professional librarian remains on staff. This is very important because per the Texas Administrative Code, this is chapter 13, code section 1.84. In order to remain accredited, one of the minimum standards of accreditation is having a professional librarian on staff. And that means a person who has a MSIS or a Master's of Science in Information Studies degree. And then our mission statement, the Martindale Community Library shall endeavor to be a center for community, life, and learning, offering people of all ages free and open access to information resources, programs, and technology. Reflecting the population of Martindale and its surrounding areas. Thank you. We are right at the end. So this was presented by the Langford Community Management Services at one of our previous city council meetings. And this diagram basically shows that access to education and information is under the quality of life in a healthy environment. And so essentially that is what we offer on a regular basis. We try to offer access to information and education every single day that we're open. And then I just wanted to close on, I apologize, new students a bit closer. I'm really struggling with these slides. I just wanted to close on a quote from author Eric Kleinenberg, in which he stated in his novel Palaces for the People. He described libraries as the heart of our communities and stated that every community needs a reliable gathering place which is fully accessible to everyone by welcoming all ages, ethnic groups, social classes, and abilities. And he also found in his book that more than 90% of Americans see their libraries as very or somewhat important to their community. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to end. Please continue to help us uphold our commitment to the citizens of Martindale by providing us funding. Thank you so much for your time. And I wanted to end on this picture. This was recently from our last summer reading event. This was yesterday at Lego Club. We had a blast. Thanks to Save the Children, we had a number of prizes to give away. And we ended up having 12 excited kiddos come. And they didn't want to leave. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Our attorney was not able to be here tonight, so we are not gonna do 3.1. We just kind of put that on there because we were thinking there might be additional questions about the sales tax. So we'll move on to 4.1, which is the budget again.
Excel.
The Excel.
Yeah.
Want to switch
Mhm.
chairs? All right, good evening.
Good evening.
So, I apologize for not having this in the PDF format earlier. We spent a good deal of Monday morning, Dwayne and I, going through and updating the accounting structures and transactions to try to prior transactions to get them to match what the budget is going to be for this next year. The budget structure will be for this next year. And then was delayed in some of the formatting requirements that needed to incorporate some of the changes and things we discussed. I'll point out the substantive changes and also any changes relating to formatting that may look different than the last time we've seen it. So under the general operating revenue, The only substantive change is the inclusion of parking and off-street parking and metered parking within the general fund. This would relate to an expected ordinance that city council may adopt to put paid parking at the school crossing. That resulted in another substantial change in the total revenue in the general fund, going to 667,360. So that's a little bit more than what we had previously. Any questions on general fund revenue changes?
So the $10,000 for Skull at $10 a car is what, 1,000 cars?
Yeah.
Roughly?
Yeah.
And that money is going into the general fund. And since Skull is not a park, then it goes into the general fund. But how will the safety upgrades of the roads, the signage, and all those things be paid for? They'll be paid for out of the general fund then to improve Skull.
Yeah, the city council could use its general fund to improve that area. It could also, depending on the nature of the improvements, dip into the capital improvement fund or any other existing unrestricted funds that the city has at its disposal.
We could possibly get grants, right?
Highly unlikely.
Right.
We already have all the stop signs.
What?
We already have all the stop signs.
We already have all the stuff.
We were just rearranging them.
So the stuff about maybe parking stops or marking out on the road, say the arrows and the safety walking areas, because that's what I've been hearing a lot about from concerned citizens is the safety there. So I would like to see some of these improvements made prior to starting to charge, because we want to make it safe before we make that an official. I'm curious how those things will be paid for with the expected amounts of $10,000 being made.
We're about 60 days to the end of the fiscal year. I don't expect, and any spending requirement more than $3,000 comes to city council for approval. It's not on the agenda tonight, and just looking at the calendar of regularly scheduled council meetings, there's only 3 council meetings, 2 of which I hope to be here for. The others the week of my son's birth. So in all likelihood, I will not be presenting in fiscal year 24 a contract to do that. So any expense would have to be found within the fiscal year 25 budget. The fiscal year 25 budget for those types of improvements could be made out of the street and road fund for striping, or it could be made out of the capital improvement fund if we're constructing a feature that has a durable quality and an expense. It likely would qualify for a capital improvement, for like stairs or something like that. Landscaping or any property maintenance would fall out of our maintenance expenses, which I'll go to the next chart to reference those. But that's another area where those costs would come out of, is the general grounds maintenance of the budget. And so cobbling those things together, there could be some amount of expenditures dedicated to that in the budget. The city council could consider the timing of that in relation to possibly adopting that ordinance. And, this is a projection. This doesn't impact reality, right? So just because this is in the budget doesn't mean the ordinance is passed and fees would be collected. That would still require another action by city council.
And I don't mean to drag this out, but I have one more question about Skull and the necessity perhaps for street lighting there due to the fact that we had some problematic situations there. So say, would a transformer, we've already known we need a transformer there because I investigated this before and all that. So would that perhaps be paid for out of the utility fund to have street lights there?
Street lights in the city are paid out of the general fund, and there's a line item account on that.
We need a transfer.
because the transformer that they currently have is so far away from the Skull Bridge parking lot that I investigated that before, and they said, Blue Bonnet said that we would need an additional transformer in order to equip or to have a street light there.
My expectation is that electrical infrastructure at that location is going to go through a significant upgrade in the near future if the expected development happens that
Okay.
has already been proposed by and approved in a subdivision application.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So unless there's any other questions on revenue, I can address Councilman Clinton's
No.
questions on the expenses. So
We've beaten that one to death.
to quickly address your question, I'll bring it back to a larger issue. So where those items could be taken out of are your ground maintenance and repair. There's $10,000 budgeted. This covers mowing near streets, open green space, not park space, open green space, and other ground maintenance within activities within the city that are not within the parks. So that could be an item that would be used. You can see right now, we're only projected to spend, according to what's been accounted for in that line item in our county system, only about $3,000. Now, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that dollar figure because we did have a changeover in accounting systems in January, February. So there could be some costs allocated elsewhere that would otherwise have fallen into the ground maintenance. But the takeaway is there's some small level of funding that could be used for that. Is it going to be a transformational beautification of that space? No. No, absolutely not. But there is money there. And then also the street and road improvement maintenance that can be used for striping and other things that come up. So put it back in context, 667,000 in the revenue side. And then on the expense side, right now, this budget has 682,000 on the expense.
The statement from the county did not show any increase. That number that you calculated from the revenue on property taxes,
I was looking earlier. I don't think I received anything for the county.
no numbers, right? I saw the one.
You didn't get anything from them on there.
No, I got the appraisal roll, but
That doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, not,
No, right.
I saw that and it was like, that didn't help you, right?
You can use it, you can try to replicate their math, but the problem is we don't have the metadata tagging that goes into the data to know which structure. I mean, they give you some totals of new structures, not new structures, and the valuations of each. The total value of those who have their property tax frozen because they're over 65, and we can get close. We can get within about $1,000, $2,000 typically if we try to do the math ourselves. But every time I try to replicate what they do, it comes out different somehow. And
You just add 3.5%, move on.
yeah,
Or no,
that's
we don't know of any great development that happened, so. Well, there'll be some increase with the subdivision.
maybe yeah, with
The
the
lots on the river are now,
with them being subdivided, it could increase the property value.
oh no, it is listed higher.
So
At least the ones on the river have. This one didn't go until, that won't go into effect till next year.
right, but even then, we're looking at 30 cents per $100. You know, on $100,000, that's you know,
It's not great.
$300.
Yeah,
So it's
something, but it's not.
even a lot across 11 lots. We're
Yeah.
talking like thousands of dollars here. In the 4 digits. So just want to point out this budget still reflects a intended deficit if it's adopted as is. I know we had a pretty lengthy discussion on that last time. I'm not looking to motivate a similar discussion this time, other than to ask if there's been if anybody wants to share a comment or questions or share their position on the matter.
real quick question. Is that the that is included the salary for a full-time? city
Yes.
Manager?
Yes, that includes a full-time, city manager starting day one of the fiscal year at a salary rate, of the advertised $75,000 per year,
So if we,
plus their benefits.
so if we went to a part-time city manager, we could in theory balance the vote.
Oh, very easily.
Right now, it's 15 instead of, it's 15 is the difference.
Yeah.
Last week it was,
Am I correct? Am I
25,
correct to assume this? If they're part-time, we don't have to pay benefits?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Now, that could still be negotiated with the candidate to, help the compensation package to attract those people,
So
but
typically, I think we asked is what's typical on a full-time city manager? What would their compensation package be approximately?
most city managers, their compensation package includes what the city already provides to its full-time employees. Where ours is very competitive, to other municipalities, some have a higher percentage contribution in the retirement than we do, but ours is not unheard of low. It's 5%. I think it's 5% mandatory contribution by the employee and a 2x match by the employer, the city, to that, to the retirement. So the employee is getting a 15% contribution to the retirement system. Some cities do a 7% mandatory contribution and a double on the 7, so it's higher. But 5% is pretty typical.
I think we said, I'm sorry.
The salary is where the biggest distinction is going to be, because our benefits are typical for most cities. We don't offer disability, but they can go out and get that on their own for not too great difficulty. The salary is at the bottom basement of what you would find for a city manager, like the bottom. I don't think I've seen others. I've seen others in the 70, 75, 80,000 range. Typically those postings last a while. And in some cases, I've seen trends with smaller cities increasing their offered compensation, salary compensation, to try to attract more candidates. Good news is we're not in an area that's remote, so we may not have that struggle. I'm hopeful that the 75,000 salary will get a qualified candidate that the council could consider if it wanted to, not that you would have to. And
It's kind of like deja vu for me, with you. A little history, folks. 2018, we had the same discussion. And I said, what about part-time? And I will stand. That was a great decision. We got you. It would be great if we could replicate that situation again and have, in my personal opinion, have a part-time city manager, somebody maybe just getting out of school or going to school, or somebody retired who just needs some part-time work.
so would you like to see that change reflected in the budget?
I think it'd be beneficial. Would y'all agree with that? The governor, would you agree with that?
what?
Put that part-time position and see how the budget looks?
Well, I mean, that's the mayor. Yeah, I mean,
Or the mayor? I'm
mayor's
just-
gonna
I'm
have to,
asking.
she has to interview the candidates to see what the quality.
I mean,
I think we need somebody sooner than later,
Yeah.
obviously. I think we all have a consensus based
But what do
upon
you-
what I've seen in the office and the level of, normal interaction that's in the office. We need a little more coverage.
but
But
what
did
I'm
we ever
asking,
decide to have a city manager as opposed to a city administrator, or?
So this manager administrator component, as it relates to the form of government, would have to go to an election, and they would have to be put on a ballot. So the council wouldn't have the ability to make that change today. Because of that, we're not advertising this as a city manager job because the election hasn't already happened. We're advertising this as a city administrator job under a mayor council form of government. But that change could happen after that person's hired. And if there's a desire to go down that path. Budgetarily, it wouldn't make a difference. It's still salary and benefits. And the salary and benefits wouldn't necessarily change between one or the other. Just the their function within the government. And it also changed the function of the mayor of the government.
But Jared, do you think it'd be beneficial to put that, reformulate it with a part-time city manager on the budget to see how it looks? This is.
Well,
Yeah, if you want to see the, I mean, the
I mean, all it is,
alternative.
it's a number.
The alternative would be, right now, a fully loaded, full-time city manager plus all the benefits ends up being about $97,000. Your part-time employee, if they're making probably somewhere in the range of $30 to $35 an hour, and it's just a function of how many hours. If they're doing 1,000 hours in a year, which is roughly half time, 20 hours a week, they're making about 30 to 32,000. So that is a significant difference. 97 fully loaded with benefits, but 30, 35 in a part-time role. Plus taxes, yeah. There's so 40.
then we
It's gonna attract a very different candidate.
and we might have to even hire someone else part-time to fill in those hours either way. You know what I mean? One of the things that brought up was the coverage, was the number of hours that we had coverage in the office versus how many we're going to have. I mean, that's what I'm concerned about. If you've been down here, sometimes someone's here by themselves, which is not ideal, obviously. Having two people at all times is important.
What do you think, Mayor? You're the person to ask about part-time. Yeah,
Otherwise,
Well, if you had three people, like the assistant to the city manager, the city clerk and the city administrator, I think it definitely would work.
that's part-time city manager.
But how are you gonna get? I'm sorry, I didn't even raise my hand. I just was going to ask how, like, if we're gonna have a hard time finding a part-time city manager, like, it will take us, I think, but this is just in my head, maybe my head is not right. That it would take us longer to find a well-qualified person or ably qualified person who is willing to work part-time for $30 an hour without benefits. And if you have to find basically 3 of those who will accept those positions, it would seem like if we also are weighing that against needing to have people here and doing the work, it might be a more difficult process.
I think the risk is the availability of a person for a half time.
Mhm.
I mean, the city has experienced that with myself. It was initially advertised at a full-time position when I applied and spoke with the mayor at the time. And she notified me that the council had chosen to make it part-time. I said, yeah, count me out. Give it some more thought. Things changed in my circumstances and gave her a call back and said, actually, talk to me. How part-time can we make that? And so, like right now, I'm not doing anywhere close to 1,000 hours in a given year. I'm probably doing 600 hours in a given year. So you're not getting the same level of support.
Right.
And we, to the mayor's point, you have to fill that in with other personnel to fill that gap. And then
Yeah.
also, in my opinion, it takes a lot of effort on the mayor to also make that work to ensure the continuity within the staff.
Yeah, that's.
And it's
almost-
uncomfortable to think about, like, that the idea is how part-time can we make it? As opposed to like a full-on, full-time person who has benefits and is like here, like mentally as well as. I'm sorry, Sam, go ahead.
No, that's sort of how I feel too, if we're talking about 3 part-time people as opposed to a qualified person that's here full-time. When you have part-time people coming at various times of the week, at various times of the day, it's almost like those 3 people have to almost talk somewhat amongst themselves to figure out what each individual was talking about and trying to figure out. So you almost spend more time talking together to try and figure out what the other people have been talking about. And then it takes longer to figure things out as opposed to say a full-time person like you that has the ability to be here.
And the training and the
Well, the
knowledge.
person to ask is the mayor. You've been on board with this.
Yes, sir.
You've
We
been on,
are
I mean,
asking her.
you're on board. I'm not here. The rest of us aren't here full time, so you know more than anybody in this room. If it's doable, granted, we got very fortunate having Jared and Adrian. We got really lucky with that. But it seemed to work really well because I know, I won't say names, I know in the past, we had a full-time city manager and it did not work out at all. At all.
And that doesn't mean, I mean, you can't judge it based on one
Laura, I'm just
person.
saying in my experience, that's all.
I hear
I'm just saying, It's
you.
all,
But you keep repeating that the mayor needs to decide, but we're all just talking. We're all just
The mayor-
talking. The mayor can express her opinion. It's
I
okay.
think Mike had
the mayor runs the city, we don't.
I know
So
that.
she knows more about the
You've
inner.
said that 3 times.
Well, I'm just having a conversation. That's all we're trying to do here, Laura, is having a conversation. You're welcome to talk. If you want to say something, go right ahead. I'm just saying, my experience, I've been here since 18. I've seen multiple administrations. And I've got experience with this. And what I see, fortunately, it's all about getting the right people. You pick the right people that you can delegate responsibility to. Like, we have some excellent staff people and people can learn. So I'm finished. That's all I got to say.
Well, I would say that when Adrian was here, he was full-time. And we had Jared on Mondays. The 2 utility clerks. And it worked pretty well because Adrian was full-time, but I would have to do a lot of work like permits and stuff and picking up the slack that Adrian couldn't get to, and he was full-time. So it's really hard to predict. If you had that's why I keep saying, if you had a part-time person, 3 part-time people, that had clearly defined roles of what they were doing, I feel it could work.
And that's kind of
Three
addresses,
people.
Mr. Clinton's concern of needing to have that huddle and group talk and share things. I think what you're saying is, no, they wouldn't do that because they're staying within a defined lane. They're not here to be general customer service to the public. They have a role in interfacing with the public for that specific issue. Unfortunately, you're not going to have that person here, that function happening at all hours that the city is open.
You would still.
But you can still interface, but the work isn't going to happen on that project the way that it would have with Adrian being full-time. So to the concern of it's going to be more difficult to manage the functions. You're functionally separating them, and I think that could work.
Well, I think we still had things falling through the cracks, like the internet, the website. We never were able to keep up with the website. Matthew has volunteered to help.
I got voluntold.
And the minutes, so that those 2 things, even under Sylvia, were not getting done. I think if you had a clerk/secretary, that was their clearly defined role, and they didn't feel like they had to do permits or other customer service things that came in the door, then those things would get done. And that's what the public sees. If they can't get their hands on the minutes and things. Now, one of the things that Adrian did was, he always has the videos. And the videos are legal for us to do, but many of us would still like to have the written minutes along with that. The commissioner's court does both. And some people do and some people don't. Adrian and I looked at a lot of the different cities to see how they did things. And so we started doing things where we take the agenda and then just put down the motions and stuff, so that was in writing. So it was just bare bones minutes. And so that kind of works. But, I mean, I like your idea of using, an online system to do permits. I think the paper trail would be really beneficial for everybody. And it would be more clearly defined, and that's what we're trying to get to, is to really define what we want from the public and what they want from us. So, you know, it kind of depends on what can we afford and how can we, so far, I'm really proud of this city because we have been able to really run pretty efficiently on the staff that we have. So, you know, it really depends on the budget, and we know that this year we're tightening our budget a little bit because of the sales tax that got taken away from us, which we're gonna try and get back, but, you know, it may or may not happen. So in tightening our budget, it's gonna kind of be out there as to what can we find to do. Deanna's taken on some of the role of already she's written an ordinance.
All right. Good job. I got confidence in you.
I hope you apply
Keep the
for
marker
the job of assistant city administrator. So under Jared's guidance, he really molded Adrian quite nicely, too nicely. So that could happen again, but
Hopefully for her.
you know, I think what Jared said too was having someone that's really eager, like a young person, that's coming out of the university. And like you said, we had an older person that didn't work out. So it really depends on what can we find and
Yep.
But how do we advertise generally if we're not really sure what we can pay someone?
So.
That's the part I don't understand.
So
Well, that's why
we've
we're
already started that.
budgeting.
We started the advertisement to support the conversation. I'd hoped by this point we'd have a clear answer. It's trending towards a clear answer that the candidates aren't really there. There are some, but it's not as strong of a pool as I would hope. And one of the candidates that applied may be a good fit, but it's not like there's a pool of candidates that you're bringing in to interview, and going through successive rounds of interviews.
And is that because it's being advertised at a lower salary, or is it because it's
100%.
part-time?
I've had other people in the field reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me about it, and decline to participate because of it.
Yeah, I would rather see a city manager or city administrator here full-time, because you have done very well on our budgets and working things out, but there's been several hot button issues that you could have perhaps assisted us more or been more informed about, and that had fallen through the cracks, and you have admitted that, and so I know that you have your other occupation and your other life, but I think the wheels could have turned a little more concisely and been more at a steady rate, as opposed to having these sort of ups and downs and gaps and not exactly misinformation, but just to where things weren't taken care of as quickly, things that had fallen towards the wayside or forgotten, or that we haven't been updated on. And Adrian did learn, but we have to not keep saying that and move forward with what we have or what we can budget. So I am for a full-time person with benefits at this point.
Well, I said it last time, I'll say it again. I've been here longer than anybody. And this is the best this city has run, in my opinion, since I've been elected in 18. I mean, for what the staff we have and we've got a lot of things done, and I'm very proud. Sonia you've been here longer than I have, you were with me. It's improved dramatically over the last several years. And, so we've made some big strides. So we're a little town and we got growing pains and we got limited income. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with how the city's being run at this point, but we do have problems, I would admit.
Mayor, this ultimately is your budget to submit and for the council to vote on, submit next week and the council to vote on in the future. And really the intent of these conversations at this stage are to achieve consensus. I think we're hearing a divergence of views, at least within some of the council. Maybe the question would be useful to pose the other way. Would you like to see, this is ultimately your budget, that number change to reflect the part-time position and then have the council consider that? And then what would council think about being presented with that different number at the salary expense level for?
Isn't that gonna be the same conversation?
It's the same conversation, but it's
Could we do a
it's-
straw vote or something
well,
instead of doing it all again?
I think we're having a conversation to reach consensus. We have to be careful about voting.
Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right, but I also would like to not be redundant. This is the third time we'll be starting the same conversation, and I very
Well,
much,
that's
I
why,
very much want consensus. But I would like a way to monitor consensus rather than just like, let's change the words and see if everyone's opinion changes.
Can I make a comment on this?
Yeah.
I think there's basically two scenarios. One, where we have a budget line item of approximately $97,000 for a full-time manager.
Mhm.
If we get a part-time manager, we're more than likely gonna end up getting another clerk or another assistant city manager.
Mhm.
The net of those two people, I believe, is gonna be very close to this $97,000 because these people will not have benefits.
Mhm.
So for my quickie, if you want to stop talking about it, and moving forward, is as long as we leave a budget line item that the salary is somewhere close to that 100,000, and these two other positions combined are going to be in that ballpark, I think we all kind of make sense. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And then it will depend on who applies.
May I make a comment?
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah,
That was
like I
a
said,
nice summary.
coverage of hours
Yep.
and payroll.
Yep.
That's all that matters.
Yep.
You got it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Yes, amen. That
So-
leaves you options as well.
exactly.
People
got
who've
options.
answered our job, have mainly been the assistant
Yeah.
and then followed by the city clerk.
Yep.
And then the least amount of people we've got to respond has been city administrator.
Which we still need regardless.
There's a couple that have trickled in the last week, like I think two. But so it's about even with the assistant in terms of quantity, but we're barely getting on our second hand in terms of number of applicants.
Can we do some things to change or ramp up? I don't know how, the recruitment efforts? Are there personal networks we can reach out to, or are there other places to advertise, or like, are there other ways to?
Yeah, one of the ideas I had and was going to do is there's a city managers association in Texas. We're part of the Region 8, Commonwealth County, for whatever reason, gets grouped with San Antonio under that construct, where everything else we get grouped with Austin. One of the things I was kicking around my head is kind of that same issue of tapping in that network and asking cities, hey, do you have a high flyer, a young person who you want to put in a leadership position that would be interested in this? Let them know. The other thing that happens in large organizations is you get these temporary detail assignments and you get to kind of try out the job, put the shoes on for a while and see how it works. It'd be difficult to do that with other cities, but there might be an option to say, loan us an interim, let them be city manager for a day. You're going to benefit through their experience and we'll give them back to you. If there's somebody who's an assistant director of finance. who doesn't have a clear opening for promotion in the next year or two,
That's interesting.
put them on loan to us, kind of like a European soccer league.
Exactly.
Very creative,
And send them back ready to take on that director position to help them in that succession plan. I don't know if anybody would take me up on it,
Right.
but I've been kicking around the idea and how to pitch it. I just haven't had the gumption yet to pitch it to anybody, because I'm not sure if it. how
That's kind of like Adrian. He kind of grew.
Right.
You know, as he was a clerk, he was a very intelligent young man, and he was able to grow in that position. And good on him, he went for bigger and better things.
The difficulty is where, because that's about where we would be hiring salary wise, is an assistant director of a smallish to medium sized city. Or somebody who's a planner, you know, who's professional, has a couple of years experience, but hasn't gotten into the supervisory ranks yet. That's probably where we would be recruiting from. And cities probably are loath to see their best people go unless they're getting some sort of return. And maybe there's somebody out there in the network that would say, I'll take you up on it.
Hey, Ray, real quick, what's the typical duration of a typical city manager? 2 to 3 years, 4 years?
I'd say about 3 years.
So
The City Managers Association, as part of their ethics and thing, they say don't do less than 2 years. That's really disrespectful to the city that hired you. And most people abide by that unless if there's a departure, there's probably some conflict there.
So
I would, somewhere in the range of 3 to 5. If beyond 5 is less common, but
Yeah.
there's definitely environments where you have city managers who have been in the same city for 30 years. I mean, Bernie was like that for decades, and before a recent change, I think the last 5 years.
technically what you're saying, we're just in the position, if we did part-time, full-time, that's gonna be a position that will probably cycle out every 3 to 5 years. We'll have new people coming in.
You want to have greater turnover in a part-time position.
Yeah.
Significantly greater turnover in a part-time.
The advantage of having 3 people too is that you have more coverage. If somebody goes on vacation or they're sick, you still have somebody in the office that can answer questions.
Yeah, I was a second part-time. The first part-time city administrator
Didn't last long.
lasted a number of months, I
Yeah.
believe. Less than, just about a year, maybe less than a year.
Mhm.
I think it was less than that. It wasn't long.
And, I don't want to get into the situation there, but
It's very hard to make that type of position
work.
work.
For somebody, because again, their time, if they're retired and they're coming off of a larger city, there might be some retirement implications depending on how many hours they work. Your benefits, or even if they're continuing to be employed by a municipal city, can they pull municipal retirement? And so you're not able to get
Someone
somebody-
young has new exciting opportunities that pop onto their plate that they maybe didn't even expect.
Right. Or if they're young, they're taking a part-time position. That period of time where that makes sense for them, works best for them, is transient.
Yes, yeah, because they eventually need benefits and they need a full-time job.
Or it's a situation where, like myself, when I took it, it was, a no kids environment. Now we're about to have our third. So, and that's one of the motivating factors for this conversation.
You've been with us six years?
5 years. A little over 5 years.
I know, I used to manage people. And a lot of times, I would prefer the younger ones that were smart, motivated, and didn't have any bad habits. So some of the worst were the people that
Where do you find
had,
those?
Right, exactly.
then I had some that typically the older ones that already had bad habits that.
You may not have met a lot of Gen, whatever we're on
Well, this
now,
is years ago.
because
I'm old
like,
school.
yeah,
I'm just saying. my
yeah,
experience.
a lot of these folks, they're a
It's
different
I mean,
generation.
I'm been retired since 16, so I'm old school guy.
And like I've mentioned before, I'm not in a rush to initiate this conversation. We have an opportunity here with the changeover on staff to design the staff to set us up for the next period of time. And so, and if there is a passing of the baton, I'm open to that baton being a longer pass. The difficulty you have in that situation is, when the call is made, who's answering the call for the information? What's the role? What's their interrelationships going to be? And that can be difficult. And the handover and the changeover and expectations. Because if someone's coming in to be the city administrator part-time, and I'm still in a support role to them, they're going to have the ability to speak to council like I am speaking to you today, right? And me in a support role would not be having that conversation. I would be a reach back to them as advisor to them, and not, necessarily taking a phone call from a council member. Hey, I want to talk about this issue. I want to talk about the mini pitch or whatever it is. No, and so if there was a baton pass or handover while remaining in a part-time context or even full-time context, the council would have to set expectations on. Our recommendation is that the council would set expectations on here's the roles and responsibilities of what that looks like.
I'll say it, I really appreciate you working with us, and thank you very much to help us assist us in this transition, because you have taken the city to a new level, in my opinion. You're professional, and you really added professionalism to how the city's run.
Appreciate that.
And if you could you got that expertise, and you did a great job with Adrian, and hopefully we could replicate that, and that would be fantastic.
Like I said, we're not in a rush, but it's something that was in the budget. It's a budgetary consideration. Does any other council members want to share a thought on it? And Mayor,
It looks like your budget is basically out of balance by the benefits.
more or less, yeah.
So it kind of supports the, turn one person into three or
Yep.
two.
Good point.
You could put all the salary and trim that, and it makes it work.
Yeah.
Creative thought.
So Mayor, I'll work with you on making that adjustment then. The next items on here, so this is a roll-up of the entire general operating budget. There was some confusion last time about what that looks like for certain activities. And in an attempt to clarify that, I've broken it out by department, general government, and the rest. This is the only significant change in the expenses. No other, other than we'll get to in the Department of the Parks and how that looks like. But numbers haven't changed, just formatting. So I'll bring this back a little bit, move this out of my way. And so here. So, and you have this on your iPads as well if you want, and I can help you orient on there. But there's several columns. So this is general government activities. It's spread across in the columns, the different funds, general operating fund, special revenue, hotel tax fund, special revenue, street restricted, etc. The bulk of all of this is within the general fund. Very, very little is elsewhere. So you see the salaries, expenses, the maintenance and repair activities, the equipment expenses, the contractual services, insurance, printing, and public relations. So all of those costs that you saw on this prior table are mostly reflected in the general operations area department of the city. The other things that fall within general operations within the special revenue funds, are few and far between. For example, the hotel tax funds. Those are associated with printing of public relations, and those are budgeted accordingly. So the total bottom line figures for the budget for fiscal year 25 is $34,000. These numbers haven't changed from the last time you've looked at them, just their placement in the chart has.
Is that the $34,000 that the Visit Martindale group has formulated out and given to the city as what they feel they need to operate the Visit Martindale?
It is informed by that request, but is not, this is not that request. The city council can do $5 or 30,000 or anywhere in between or zero.
So the
Right, so-
$34,000 there is not a reflection of the proposal that the Visit Martindale people gave us for $34,000.
No, so what this is doing is saying we have a accumulated cash surplus in the hotel tax revenue fund. Let's use it on these things: marketing, event programming, $4,000 and $5,000 for printing and public relations activities. So $25,000 in marketing, $5,000 for printing of some kind, public relations of some kind, kind of like an other, and then $4,000 on events generally. So that's this.
The mayor says.
If council wants, it can change those number figures. Recommend those number figures get changed now, or leave them as is. Because we've already had a discussion on each line item, I just wanted to point out that the next time you see this posted on the internet, it's going to look different. And here's where it's coming.
And is this a workshop where we can receive comments?
Well, this is a
City council.
this is a city council meeting, and there's a period for public comments. But if they want to be recognized, the chair of the meeting can obviously recognize.
Yes, would you like to?
Okay, so what is the $25,000 designated to?
$25,000 is designated to advertising and marketing activities.
Okay, so are there accounts receivable for that? So $25,000 for events, what event happens for $25,000 with marketing? And are the receipts that somebody turns in or that $25,000?
So this is a budget. This is prospectively looking at
Like,
a
say,
plan.
25.
Yeah, we're starting in October 1st of 2024 through September 30th of 2025.
It's a big budget for marketing. Because if, for instance, like I have our receipts that are posted online for the Young Universe, for the nonprofit that we did for Tammy Fest, and we spent a lot on advertising. That was with social media, and that was with my email database. So total cost for that. You know, I want to say, and I have a printouts on marketing with what we reached. We did a marketing campaign that would cover the demographic of Sabine, Austin, Georgetown, even when in Houston because of our database. So it was a large part of things. Expanding into various community, our budget was around $1,700 so $25,000, and then printed materials. I'd have to ask what printed materials. And I think like normally when it comes to budgets, when it comes to hotel tax funds, you have to turn in a packet. In other words, like for every dollar you receive from city funds, you have to account for admin, who's paid, you know, and printed materials, what printed materials, and you have to turn in, like, what did you print? And then when it comes to advertising receipts, what receipts were spent on advertising, those dollars, they just have a figure. And I appreciate a budget, but for somebody that just went through the process in 2019, when we had our fundraiser, we profited 14,000. We used Carlton's building. Nonprofit made a profit of 14,000. That was without city funds. or we ran into problems with a nonprofit is when we received city funds. And we have receipts, that's when we started to not profit on our fundraiser, was with city funds. Now, then look at last year, we brought in a considerable amount of people with close to 400 people at our Saturday event. And then Friday's event was 125 people, 80% were out of town, back to our paid out Eventbrite. So I want to keep this short. But that's in compliance with hotel tax funds because first of all, we're promoting the city of Martindale. And second of all, that's out of town people. And it's trackable by expenses and trackable by who came in from out of town based on ticket sales and based on our clicks and likes on social media. And so going forward, I would love for the nonprofit to be able to have events here, but it can't be where our profit is $4,000 and that's supposed to get a nonprofit through for a whole year on what's supposed to be a fundraiser. So when I look at $25,000, I want to know, if somebody were to receive hotel tax funds, what are the guidelines that everybody should adhere to when it comes to receiving funds?
We've
from a hotel tax fund?
Jared's been developing those and we've been applying those. And,
City council passed the ordinance in February.
so that we can send that to you.
Okay, great. So they have to turn in receipts. Like, for instance, if like we were given 8,000, like the first year it was $8,000, and it amazed me that we didn't have to turn in anything. And then last year we received considerably less, but made a net profit of 4,000 for a fundraiser. We can't do that again. But if we were to come here and want to do another event that was big on a big scale, I really feel like when you're using someone's hard-earned dollars, you should be accountable for finances. Not everybody works like
Right.
that,
Right.
but I feel like there has to be guidelines. Like, for instance, the city of San Marcos, when we get funds from them, we have to turn in their hardlanders when it comes to what we turn in. And I have those templates, but was here tonight in hopes that going forward, I don't feel like when we hire entertainment, I don't feel like if we hire local entertainment that they should play for free. They should make some. OYU doesn't hire entertainment to should play for free. They should, every artist should profit. That's why I think that every dollar that we make and every dollar that we spend should come with receipt, like what we spend and what we make. What is overhead? What is admin?
And you do a really good job of doing that. I was really impressed with your budget
I think it's
and
important because this
Yeah.
is any event we host. It's always any event, any income coming in and going out is accountable to people that work.
That's part of the requirements now
yeah.
Yeah,
in the ordinance.
yeah. So anyway, those are just my 2 cents on it. Like,
And we can
25,000
send you
is a little
that.
high, kind of vague, like, and I just think that anytime, like what printed materials, especially. in
I think
education,
this budget too is probably reflecting, we were moving towards Visit Martindale where they were developing a whole
And
campaign.
even though it's a nonprofit, what is admin for Visit Martindale?
Right.
All right, what is admin
Right.
and what do we get for that? Like the city manager to me, like, I'm speaking out of turn here, but for instance, Visit Martindale nonprofit, what is admin? Who's the executive director?
Right.
What's
We
salary?
Established all
What are
those
benefits?
guidelines.
Because 35, that's a lot of money. So I
Yeah.
think when it comes to a nonprofit, I think there are certain really tight rules with it, especially with hotel tax funds. 'Cause that's really, it's a really anal segment of funds. It's
Right.
anal with what's required and Visit Martindale, we're a really small community.
Right,
Do you
right.
really- Like, that's a lot of money that comes, not a lot of money, but it's significant that comes in for a nonprofit. And I just feel like even that has to have some
Yeah.
pretty strict.
We have
We'll
so few
send you-
businesses right now. There's so few businesses that like people visit Martindale, but like, what are what are you gonna do when you're visiting unless
That's
there's an
right.
exceptional event like OIOU or the River
That's
Appreciation Day?
right. And where is the office and what is the point? Like, what is, where is it going to be? What is the visitor center, but to what?
And
That, so I
Mhm.
feel like that just has
Yeah.
to be really explained or else it's vague. And anytime you have something vague,
We'll send it to you.
okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're not identifying spending items within the budget. This is a budgetary top line figure. The council can vote to, change it, recommend to change it. Here's an example of where you have those cross, fund singular issues. So street and improvement maintenance, there's $10,000 within the general operating fund. But there's also funding within the special revenue fund. And so it provides a complete picture of what the funding profile is. I know we've already talked about these numbers, but I just wanted to orient you to the charts. I know it's a little bit difficult here, but same with the admin finance. This one's all within one budget. This covers those wages and salaries, and so you'll see this number change as the mayor makes the change in her updates. And then the police department, this is no change to prior other than the nomenclature, the accounting number went from 25 to 16. But other than that, there's no significant change in what's attributable to the police department. Same with the courts. We've talked about these things. And then this is where it is new. This is the parks. So we've breaking the parks out into its own department in the budget. You have these first three tables that cover the budgetary value in column B. You have the last year's budgetary value, column C, and what we've spent year to date, fiscal year to date, with the projection of where we expect to be at the end of the year based on that historical spending. It is straight line spending. It doesn't include planned spending. So these numbers, if they're artificially low, they might be artificially low compared to what planned spends might be. But it gives you kind of an estimate where you have some of that. So together, columns B through D are the general fund. Columns E through G are your special revenue restricted funds. That's revenues generated from the parking activities in the parks. So as we get into this, you'll see that ground maintenance expected spend to date based on historical spending, again, not accounting for planned spending, $9,000 in the general fund, but budgeted at $0 in fiscal year 25 in the general fund. However, it is budgeted for $26,000 in the restricted account. Now, I do think I fat thumbed a number. If we look at just the contracting, well, that's close. It's close. Never mind. I was wondering, it could end up being more closer to $25,000 and change. 26 is a rounding in the contract. So it's not a dollar for dollar. If there's extra money here, it'll just roll over and stay within the restricted account. Other items that are covered by the general fund include equipment. We might change the name of this one. Dwayne, I was thinking about that. Tools and material instead of heavy equipment, but budget in the general fund of a certain amount. And then also budget in the general fund supplies. These are consumable items. And then utilities, a water and sewer expense. As we get more defined, Dwayne, we can always look at changing that to account for electricity. I know you said you have it. I didn't see it reflected in the budget reports yet, but that's why you're not seeing, for example, the electric meters for the parks in here is because they're covered in the general operating portion. But the question got brought up last time, where are the utilities and how are they associated with the parks? This is what at least I could identify through the reports. So some items are still funded within the general fund for the parks at a nominal amount. I don't know if that's necessarily the best approach, but it reflects what we're doing. It could be funded. There's enough headroom between the activities going. We expect to budget $30,000 in revenue coming from the parking activities in the park that go into this restricted fund. The grounds maintenance is budgeted here at 26,000. That gives you a $4,000 headroom. Those funds in the general fund could be moved over to the parks fund. I didn't want to move them though, because in the last budget discussion we had, I said they were in the general fund. So I didn't want to change the numbers like that based on our discussion.
Until all the, next year when all the accounting's cleaned up, it's gonna be a little bit
Yeah, so
in the rut lane.
one of the things we can look at doing is moving these nominal amount items into that restricted account, and I think the fund can sustain it.
So, I mean, we did discuss this last time, and I know you have $26,000 for the maintenance of the parks out of the park restricted fund, which is the monies that we're paying straight out to the landscapers to do the mowing and the garbage. But you still, I'm not clear about the utilities such as the electric, the garbage, the porta potties, the water. Are those being paid for out of the park restricted fund, or if you move those to the general utility fund to pay for those park expenditures?
Right now, the way that this is set up in the budget is because those transactions haven't been accounted for separately within the general operating fund or a parks department fund. I don't have those reflected in the budget within the parks department at all.
But we have those numbers from this year because we know that we paid the water out of the
We
general fund.
haven't gone
those
through
numbers.
by transaction unless you have that available.
We have that.
How,
Because
Joanne?
he has given me spreadsheets before that show you spent this much on water, you spent this much on the porta potty.
Well, I
you
think
spent-
we were talking.
What?
iPad down.
We were talking about QuickBooks versus ClerkBooks. When we're trying to make a switch between the two systems.
I'm just wondering how those utilities are being paid for in the fiscal year 25, out of the park restricted fund or out of the general fund?
That was the question. Right now, the budget has that all within the general. I didn't want to move the little that I could identify as being specifically for the parks into the parks fund without having the conversation, because I didn't want to make a statement last Thursday, come to you and present something that doesn't reflect the statement prior. But this still reflects the prior holding or statement of all the utilities are in the general fund.
Because even so, we have a large amount of money left in the general fund from the park budget that at the end of the fiscal year is going to revert back into the general fund anyway. So if you're proposing, I mean, because we only spent $9,000 out of the 20-something thousand that was proposed out of the park budget. So there is going to be a surplus that will be there at the end of October. And so that money generally reverts to the general fund. And now if you're saying fiscal year 25, that those utilities will be paid for out of the general fund, it's almost like, well, we're switching the leftover money into the general fund, and then we'll just pay for the utilities out of
Sam, I
that.
think what you're concerned about is, are there gonna be funds to do some of the things that you would like to see in the park? And I think for right now, because we're switching from one accounting system to another, what Jared's trying to explain is that right now they're in the general because they're still trying to sort things out and learn the new system. But if you need something, we can always get it, or we can plan for it
Hmm.
and find where it can come out of.
Okay, once we do the year end,
Hmm.
same thing we did last year. Remember, what happens at the end of the year when we do the year end budget? If we're over or under, there's allocations of money and decisions that are made at that time. Maybe by then, we'll have the detail here to have a conversation about where the expenses are and what is left over.
Hmm.
We're still premature, I think, and you know what I mean? But don't forget, you have this other window coming up in October, once the fiscal year is over, to have another discussion about what happens with this monies, you know what I mean? Because if we're
But there's
over,
nothing currently in the budget for the parks for fiscal year 25. I see a 0, and so that's what I'm concerned.
No, it's-
You have 2,000, in the general fund, it's 2,750.
But even that line item for $1,500 for tools and heavy equipment, we don't even spend any money on tools. or
Well,
heavy
that's why I said the nomenclature might be a little incorrect. What's it- what's it-
Correct, because we don't even have any tools or heavy equipment.
They would say, give them a chance to get the accounting all, the system. The accounting system is, if you've done it before, it's a nightmare doing the conversion. And that's the issue. All you care about, I know you're being detailed specific here, and I love it to death, but what matters is what's the number? And then you're gonna get, all the restricted fund is gonna be spent in revenue in the parks. And it's gonna be essentially, it's a self-sustaining entity. You know what I mean? So,
Very short amounts of money though, but okay, move on.
So here's the key. Last year's budget for parks expense in total, there's only a single line item. And the general fund itself was $19,848. That's not reflected here because it gets lost in the accounting. The projected spend based off prior spending within the general fund is going to approximate that amount. It's likely that we will, if we spend any money at all in the restricted account, the way that transactions have been recorded thus far, it's going to be near 0. But you still have a lot of headway to spend, because the parks was budgeted at basically $20,000 in general fund, and then the restricted fund was budgeted at another $15,600. So you had about $35,000, not you individually. The parks, I'm sorry. You just represent that constituency so strongly that.
yeah, let's be clear here, okay?
So,
Sam,
yeah, so it's roughly 35.
reel that in a little.
Roughly,
Where's my name tag?
yeah, roughly $35,000 was allocated in the parks last year in the budget between both the general fund and the restricted fund.
Right, but we weren't
We've only
spending the
we're-
restricted fund, we were spending out of the general fund, we didn't spend
Mhm.
any money out of the restricted fund.
Yep,
Well,
exactly.
If you'd like to, we can stop that right now and start spending it out of the restricted, and we'll have a surplus on that. Would you like us to do that, Mr. Clinton? The answer is no. Go ahead, say it. No, you don't want to do it. But we could.
We don't even have enough in the general fund to even pay for the $26,000 a year that we're paying for the landscape company, but that's fine.
Well, you're right. And that's what's going to eat into the budget in the general fund of roughly $20,000. We're going to exceed that, and those funds are going to start getting pulled out of the restricted fund as the spillover happens in September.
It'll be no different than our general fund. Every year we get a surplus of money in the beginning of the year. And then as it is now, if you look at it, it's dwindling down. The same thing will happen at the park. It'll dwindle in the winter and it will refill in the summer.
Okay.
So this time next year, it'll be the same thing.
So what you're going to do, what eventually is going to happen is in all next year in fiscal year 25, you're going to have a cash balance surplus, a operating cushion of nearly an entire year of operations in your park restricted fund, in addition to the new funds that you're bringing in. So that unless there's a significant investment, you're using the prior fund savings from prior years, you're always going to have operational cash to pay for the bills during the off seasons. And so it's going to, like, as Councilman mentioned, it's just going to.
Does that make sense?
Just flow. It's ensuring a cash flow, it's a cash flow cushion.
Okay,
That's where it's going to go. Nothing's going back into a general fund to be used on, say, roads.
Okay.
This current spending structure. Next year, however, the general fund is only going to be funded, according to this budget, at roughly $3,000 because it's just covering supplies, equipment, and some utilities. The rest of the spending is going to come out of what is generated by that park revenue. It's going to be focused on the maintenance. It doesn't really cover improvements. Improvements would come out of the capital improvement fund or other savings.
thank you.
And then the last table is the utilities table. This one's a little more complicated. It's all within, there's several funds and accounts happening. Some expenditures that related to utilities are being captured right now in the general fund. I'm sure Dwayne and I will get that corrected. We had some salaries and wages. And I think it's because in the old system, salaries and wages were funded out of the general fund and then reimbursed out of the utility fund. That's what's reflected here. So because we're showing expenditures in this chart to date, you're seeing the data presented a little bit differently. But in the future, with the change in personnel, there won't be any personnel costs directly in the utility fund if we move all the clerk activities under the general fund. So with doing that, you're not going to see any. That's why you see zero budget for salaries in the utility fund. Otherwise, if we did continue to have utility funds and or utility clerks and court clerks separate activities, you would see salaries and expenses in this budget. But based on that change, we don't.
So what happens to the money in the utility fund for fiscal year 25 that had previously been going to paying payroll salaries of our utility clerk? Where is that utility fund money being spent then?
There's still a overhead reimbursement to help offset the cost of those salaries who are still performing those duties. But because their time is split between two functions and not easily allocated, they're not going to be tracking their time saying, I did 4 hours on this and 6 hours on that, or 2 hours on this and 8 hours on that on a daily basis or a pay period by pay period basis. We're making an assumption that roughly half of the cost is going to be reimbursed. It's going to be reimbursable to the utility fund. So there still is payroll cost in a reimbursement context that's accounted for here to offset it. So it's not a complete 100% savings or cost avoidance of personnel costs. It's still there, but it's not directly attributed.
Oh, because I thought you had said previously that no personnel costs will be taken out of utility fund.
That was an imprecise statement.
That was a what?
That was an imprecise statement.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate the opportunity to clarify. There will not be payroll directly coming out of the utility fund. That where you will see a payroll number and a benefits number and everything else within the chart of accounts up here.
But you could say it's being taken out indirectly.
But there is still an indirect overhead payroll cost reimbursement to the general.
Semantics.
It's just it's different line items.
Yes, okay.
That's all it.
I guess this wasn't.
While we're down here, there's an additional overhead reimbursement to help cover keeping the lights on in the building operating. That's shared by the utility fund and general fund. The rest of the utility fund is spent essentially on contract services for solid waste operations and wastewater operations. And some nominal amounts elsewhere. Again, really just wanted to highlight the change in how the data is presented, but the data remains the same.
It seems like with this new accounting and all that, that you're still sort of shifting and working and doing all this. It's really hard to really come up with a concise evaluation in my head that this is the final, this isn't the final numbers that you're crunching, because it sounds like, well, we still need to shift this and we still need to work this and we still need to do that. I mean, it seems like they're still shifting and prepping and moving, and we don't really see the exact things in front of us right now. When will we see the exact concise,
This is it.
this is it, with no changes? This is it with no changes.
What the mayor submits and is published, when she submits it and published it, that is the final, and that's what the public's going to review and have an opportunity to comment on in a future public hearing, and the city council is going to vote on. This is not, I don't anticipate changes between now and then, other than the ones we've already discussed regarding payroll within the general fund as it relates to the staffing. But there's still a possibility that things will change. We haven't gotten our final property tax numbers. Those don't come in by Monday. Well, we're not publishing the budget by Monday, which means we're not adopting a budget that first planned city council meeting in September. Now we're publishing our budget later into August, pushing our city council adoption date later into September. And so you're going to see small changes. The budget is the budget. The numbers are firm, except for small specific areas.
We want clarity. Thank you.
With that, unless there's any other, just concludes what I intended to.
Any other discussion? Matthew, any other? Okay. All right, we can move on then. So the next thing we would like to discuss is to review the draft ordinance relating to the short-term rentals. And this is just discussion only. It's the beginning of a conversation. One of the things that we had looked at is ordinances from other cities. And we found that the one that Lockhart had seemed to be closest to what would work for Martindale. So I don't know if you've all had time to read over it.
I've got this. Ready?
So I know last time, what was his name? Steve Tittle was here.
Mhm.
One of the things he stressed was about fire safety. And so he really talked about that. Here's a email that he had written to Mike McLeod. I have reviewed the draft STR document and support this item moving forward. I do have a few comments or questions. Under section 1(c), what is the intent of this sentence? Is it intended to limit STRs to only someone's primary residence? If that is the case, I am in favor of it. And we've been exploring that item here in Martindale. The problem is there's already a couple big ones that already exist. One is right next door to me. And the other one would be the Purswell residence. I keep referring to it as Purswell residence. Cottonseed, if you see that on reports, is what they call it. So that's one thing to think about.
Isn't the purpose of this is to have contact locally to reach out? That's what this is referring to. The
Yeah,
operator is not owner, it's operator. Correct?
yeah,
So we had to have someone local that if there's a complaint to be filed, there's someone to call. They're in this area, they're not in Connecticut.
right.
They've got to be someone who can actually So, but the negative of this statement is there's no defined radius or time for service requirement on that. There just says operator, unless there's a definition of operator somewhere else that defines that.
Didn't it say they had
That's
to
a
be
good
within 50 miles or something?
Proof of the primary residence.
Thought there was something that the person, that's the contact person, had to be within 50 miles
Well, that would be an awesome,
of the,
means, local emergency contact on page 1. On the first page of it talks about that. Means a individual other than the applicant who resides within 50 miles of the subject property and who's designated by the owner applicant as the owner's agent. But we've used two different phrases here. We've got, so are they referring to operator as the owner?
Well.
Or
under
is the operator
definition,
the
it says
emergency
it's both.
contact, or is that independent of each other? So we have three different definitions that are in play, I think, to muddy the water for everybody. Sorry.
It's definitely important to have somebody local that you can call if you're having. a
Oh,
problem.
I'm going through that falls right.
If it's doing local emergency
That's the
contact,
biggest problem
right
I've
here, it's 1C, proof of
And that's
primary
what
residence of operator.
Yeah, that's what we talked about in the whole
Operator.
negotiation, is who do I contact when there's a problem and they're breaking the rules?
Yeah.
And that has not been solved yet. Because unfortunately for the falls, it's not not something city limits, there's no ordinance, so it's kind of in the county. The Airbnb, whoever runs the operation. So it's been a nightmare for me as an owner to have a contact. So a person you can contact anytime to say, hey, you're not following the rules. Now, we have police officers here that can be done with police, but it's a big problem.
Does anyone have an issue with that concept? About someone having an agent or someone available as a within a 50-mile response? I mean, that's almost the same type of concept we had with the RV ordinance. We had to have someone who was going to be within X number of miles to be able to maintain that item out of the floodway. This would be consistent.
so if they live within 50 miles and there's a complaint, are they just supposed to get in their car and drive here within an hour to correct that? I mean, why are
No,
we saying 50
No, it's
miles?
typically, well, I guess they want, what they're trying to discourage is somebody, an investor in New York, buying a bunch of Airbnbs in Martindale, and they live about 2,000 miles from here. Whereas 50 miles, you're more in the area.
You
live
could
in
still
the
have, I think the intent was you could still have somebody live in New York and have a property that they rent out. It's just that when you have a rowdy party,
That
who
would
can the police call and say, turn the party off?
Yeah.
If,
That's usually the,
and something that the neighbors could contact and say, hey, Joe, the people you had over last night, never again, buddy, like, knock it off.
That's the
That way,
contact person.
that contact, that way you can try to have community with that contact at least to address issues in a neighborly way, rather than always having to resort to the police.
So in a way, though, if you say the owner lives in New York, who the owner could be the applicant, that the person that you're contacting within 50 miles is sort of an associate or a manager of it and not the owner or the applicant.
Yes.
They're like a property manager.
But if you have them register and you list the emergency contact so that we don't have to go chase down phone numbers, and the police have that, then they would know who to call.
But they're acting more like a property manager as opposed to being the owner.
Any author, they can act anyway, as long as they're the authorized agent designated.
So if the house is on fire,
Yeah.
or it got broken into, or, they could
Act
at least
however
have
they
someone
want.
local that
They
can
just
come
have
in.
to be an authorized agent.
Okay.
And then the form that we create would make
Have their
them
name on it.
Who is the authorized agent?
give us that authorization name.
well, a lot of times it is that, like the Airbnb, that is the person you contact, the one that's managing the Airbnb.
Yeah, the one doing the listing.
Yeah, the
I
listing,
mean, yeah.
they're responsible.
I don't know what the requirements are for Airbnb with regard to, I know you have to have someone within a period of, an area in order to do it, because quite a few of the properties upstream of us have a local person as the agent for several properties.
They're in residential areas, so it's really important. The house next door to me, we have his number. The person lives in Austin, and he must have really good rules because we don't have any troubles with it.
Well, basically, that's just the luck of the draw. Depends who the owner is.
Yeah,
If they're gonna be responsible and do the right thing. Like I say, I'm personally going through that right now with a piece of property. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I had to get attorney involved, and it still hasn't been resolved. But again, that's the advantage of being in the city limits.
So do we want to charge for this registration fee on a yearly basis? Do we want a registration fee?
we do want a registration fee.
Something, $25, $30. What do we do for the RVs? The RVs is,
It was 50
50.
bucks.
so something. But this is just discussion, so yeah, we can think about it, and then that'd be a question to answer.
Who in the office is gonna keep track of all this stuff, of this? Is it on a spreadsheet or is it an accounting
It
factor?
would be the
Hopefully-
city administrator or the assistant city administrator.
Hopefully what we do is we invest in a cloud-based platform that, and all of this is done electronically and online, and anybody within the city that has right user accounts can review it and access the data. So that would include the police department and the city administrator and their person's assistant. And probably the mayor.
I had a question about the nuisance party. I thought there was something in there about 65 decibels. Was that in that section about the noise level?
Yes, it is in that.
What is it currently in the parks? Is it 65? So the 65 decibel reading, does that also pertain to duets then, when they make noise? What's the decibel reading there? So we can't really make a difference of R1 and have a different, we're saying because it's a different function then that we're making the decibel levels different.
Zoning thing,
It's a different city ordinance, basically.
Zoning
the
thing.
zoning thing.
Or
Residential has a
Different.
more quiet, standard than the commercial. If you live next door to DeWitt, I've talked to Angela about the thing. She lives next
Yeah.
door to DeWitt. She goes, I love that they did it, and some days I don't. Because if the music's good, I don't care so much, but some days I don't. But she's an MU. She knows that when she developed that property, that was a risk,
Yeah, I just wanted clarity of the difference between, say, a commercial activity
Yeah, yeah.
decibel level, which is 85, it's 65 in the parks, and it's gonna be 65 in residential zoning then pertaining to Airbnb.
Now, when I was negotiating with my neighbors, what I wanted, and we talked at our discussion about it is, I wanted no outdoor music past 10 o'clock. And to be, dark sky compliant. Because by doing that, it brings the partiers back into the house. So if they can't have the loud music outside, they'll come into the house, therefore, and have a dark sky compliant. They're kind of encouraged to go back into the house and party where you don't have the noise level. I would insist, I would like to have that in the ordinance because it makes it simple.
It has to be
Let
the
me
same
finish,
as
please.
everyone else.
Can I finish, please?
I'm not arguing.
So for me personally, it's just been a very huge issue for me. I've been stressed out for 2 to 3 months on this. So I got experience with this situation. I lost a great tenant because of this. And my property's next door to a party house. And to me, to keep it simple, that we just have no outdoor music, quiet time, 10 to 10 or something like that, and dark sky. Those two things I've helped I think would help tremendously to keep the noise level down, because the 65 decibel, you gotta get the meter, you gotta go out there. I mean, it's something simple that's easy for the police to say, hey, no outdoor music. And I think that's reasonable. I mean, you're gonna party during the day, fine, but if you're at night and it's 10 o'clock, it's time for you to go inside and party down, because I know most people in this room would not want to be next door to a party house. So that's just my 2 cents worth, since I've been involved with this for the last couple of months. And it's financially hurt me in multiple ways, and I don't know how it's gonna end for me, but it's not good. And I will say this, it's happened everywhere. The Guadalupe River, everybody, you had residents that had houses, they're all party houses. River Bend, everybody's sold, you got Texas State Tubes, they all came in, residents said, I'm out of here, they're all party houses. So, and the reason Mr. Tittle put his 2 cents worth in is because, and it's good that he likes the ordinance, is his neighborhood is being affected by Airbnbs. And it's a problem. So.
It looks like maybe that would fit under section 3 standards on short-term rentals and the number 3 under 3.3
Are those,
conduct on premises.
are those the same standards as everyone else that lives in town has to follow?
So we do, Deanna's pulling it up, but we already have a prohibition on any unreasonable noise. And what it says is that the creation of any unreasonable noise, disturbing or unnecessary noises in the city is hereby prohibited. Noises of a character, intensity, and duration as are reasonably calculated to be detrimental to life or health or ordinary reasonable persons are hereby prohibited. We might be able to, well, we might be able to expand that definition. We'll have to work with our attorney on that. To include not just life or health, but welfare. By including welfare, any unreasonable noise that's detrimental to the welfare, such as somebody blaring a boombox.
And does that apply to everybody in town?
Well, I was just thinking about what Mike was saying about the hours. So this is quiet hours and noise restrictions seen on, but something seems to be missing right there. If we wanted to say between 10 PM and 8 AM, they cannot have outdoor music.
And is that okay for, like, that seems
so-
like that's an overreach to everyone else that lives in town that may just occasionally want to have music after 10. I mean, like, why is 10 the arbitrary number for the entire
Outdoor
town?
music.
Yeah.
outdoor music.
For everyone in town, always.
Well, pretty much, I think everybody follows that.
Yeah,
Then,
we're talking about residential, not talking downtown.
Yeah.
I know you're talking about residential.
Just experience it for yourself. It's not much.
I know it. I'm not
I'm just
arguing that
saying,
it's
it has-
bad.
I'm
Yes,
just
it's
saying.
bad. I agree. It's
So,
bad. It's
And
awful.
I
It's
think,
terrible.
I think.
I also don't want to accidentally, can I please finish
Oh,
my
go
thought?
ahead. I'm sorry.
I can't process that we might accidentally end up passing rules that diminish the quality of life and the opportunity for me to decide that one night out of the year, I wanted to play music till 11. And if my neighbors don't like that, they can call and Tommy or whoever's on duty can come down and say, hey, can you keep it down? But does that mean everyone from all of Martindale who lives here and pays taxes here and owns a home in the country because they don't want to live wherever else that's more crowded and dense, everybody has to go to bed at 10? You have to go inside your house and start making no noise
Play
outside.
the music inside.
I hear you. I heard you
I'm
the
just telling
first
my
7
experience.
I heard
What's
your
your
experience.
Okay.
Let me finish my
Okay, go right
thought.
ahead. I'm just telling you, it's
Stop,
a strong.
stop,
Okay, go
stop.
ahead. Go right
Just
ahead.
let me
Go
finish
ahead.
my
You got
thought.
the floor.
Thank
Go
you.
right ahead. It's all yours.
Lord have mercy.
Go right ahead.
I hear you, Mike. I would like it if I could also be heard.
Go, I'm letting you.
I
speak.
don't think that we need rules that are gonna make everyone live the same life. as homeowners and property owners. Yes, I want rules. Yes, I am against party houses. No, I don't want drunk partiers and troopers all over. I don't want Airbnbs that are out of control. I feel like there's some level of in between that can happen from conversations like this, but not if everyone can't speak their opinion, because not everyone wants the exact same quality of life. And I feel like it's important to preserve opportunities for various people to live different qualities of life without having to say, after 10, you have to go inside.
Chief, what's your opinion?
My personal opinion on this, for the Airbnbs, I think you could have a more restrictive rule than you do for the average citizen. Reason being is because you don't know who's coming in, they're not gonna know. You publish something that they can read ahead of time, they know what you have. If they have a list that we can see, right, if we have a registration process, and so now I know that this house is 123 Main Street is Airbnb. So I have a list I can look at that. If we get a call, we're not gonna go over there and say, hey, you know what? It's 10 o'clock right here, we're gonna stand on your doorstep. But if we get a call, at least we have some teeth that we can do some, hey, it's past 10 o'clock, you need to turn the music off, or so forth. Other people, the citizens, if they're partying till midnight, I've got plenty of calls. You know, hey, this is going on, this is loud noise, you got a barking dog. What the unreasonableness of that, you have to, that's a judgment call. That's the only thing I don't really care for this statute about, because it's a judgment call if it's unreasonable. If this dog's just barking, you know, is that really unreasonable? Maybe to you at that moment it's unreasonable, right? But probably not in the big scheme of things. So that's the only thing I say. If we have bed Airbnbs and we want to be more restrictive on them and say that we want to have a measurable, something that's measurable, like the 65 decibels, I agree with that because it's measurable, something that they can't refute. Unreasonableness is hard to.
I don't mind 65 decibels even, as long as that's the average for the rest of it. But if you're in a house and you're at 70 decibels and the person that owns the house next door is at 75, but they own it,
So
is that okay?
So
Like, is that gonna hold up?
I think it should be 65 decibels at the side of the complaint.
Mhm.
Not like when I walk up to their front door and say, hey, it's 60.
Right, yeah,
decibels.
yeah.
65 decibels at the side of the complaint. So I come to your house,
Mhm.
you call me and say, hey, this is going on. I come to your house and say, well, you know, it's not quite past that decibel level. It could be 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
It could be 8 o'clock and they're.
Right, exactly. It
So
could be 8
that's-
o'clock in the morning.
Correct. And that's what we want to look at, I think. This is my
Yes.
personal opinion. This is my personal opinion.
Well, you're the expert, you enforce it.
Y'all gotta make the decisions on it, right? But, it could be any time of the day that they crank up their music. If we just say, and that's why we need to put a level on it. If we just say, you know, hey, you have whatever music you want as long as you want, then, and be unreasonable, we can go there any time of the day or night.
Mhm.
So we don't have currently, other than the parks, we don't have it, we currently have a 65 decibel.
65 decibel in the parks home.
We don't have it for the rest of,
No, not.
so you're
just-
suggesting we change this or update this or strengthen this to say,
The unreasonableness standard is tough.
It is
That's a tough.
Very broad.
awful.
it's in the New Braunfels Airbnb one too. It says right in there, I was like, really?
I've had this issue, right, where it's unreasonable sentiment. I think y'all probably all know about it. But, if someone's dog's barking, everybody else is saying, hey, it's okay, but someone living 2 blocks away saying, hey, that's unreasonable to me.
Mhm. Welcome to the world of law. That's how the laws are written.
Every Airbnb that I've ever stayed in is very, very specific rules. You break one rule, you lose your.
Right, by the homeowner or by Airbnb, not by the city.
Correct, and that's what I'm saying. One thing, that's why I like the rule of having someone that's a designee that I can contact. If we have that on a permitting process and have a designee, hey, come over here and deal with your people. I already
Right.
told them once.
Exactly,
You come deal with them.
exactly.
And we don't need to sit there and rewrite everybody tickets and everything else, but they can come over and evict them, and then it becomes a trespass issue.
Mhm.
And that's what happened down, just recently, down the road. It becomes a trespass issue at that point. And because they come over to victim, they don't want to lose or get their bad stars and all this kind of stuff.
Right, right.
So this could be a benefit for the Airbnb that wants to do a family type operation.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, that's just my opinion. I say we have something that's measurable, that you can enforce, and you have it, and you know where they're at. The average citizen, if you want to have a party at your house until 11 o'clock at night, I think you should be able to party at your house till 11 o'clock at night, until your neighbors can find you. That's, you know, and then we'll go and address it at that point. What will happen?
Everybody has a party at least
And we'll
once.
go on our way.
So in the last 2 or 3 minutes, the average decibel level of this conversation was 73.
But, well, I'm
So with
talking
a,
about-
with a max of 95. So
Yeah.
that's, that way you get a sense of the,
Yeah,
Not necessarily.
What it
not
is.
necessarily. I know, no, but you're in a rock room,
no, but yeah, but in the,
and we're
where,
talking.
where the microphone is
And
placed,
multiple people.
as I'm
at
talking
the same
right now, I'm about 73
but
decibels this far away from the microphone.
It's different when you go out and you start measuring music. And when you measure.
I'm sure, but
he's just making a
from a
point.
Yeah.
frame of reference for people to understand, it could be broke by a couple people sitting on the back porch.
Some of us.
Having a
An
laugh.
average
Especially after
window
a few
unit
drinks.
AC is only 67. Yeah,
Yeah, you ought to hear Mike's house.
Yeah, we're watching going.
Well, sorry,
Dorothy,
saying that,
Dorothy, oh, I'm sorry. Dorothy wanted
I
to
just
say.
like to make a recommendation that the council focus on the Airbnb ordinance that y'all want to apply. And let's not talk about the ordinances in the city.
They overlap. This overlaps.
thank you, I
Can't have
appreciate
one
that,
over
but
the other.
no, I don't think it's fair. I don't know that it would legally hold up to have totally different ones by the city and not by Airbnb or individual private parties that are
The
contracting.
problem with Airbnbs, let me tell you, the problem with Airbnbs with enforcement is you call this contact and they say it in their rules, but if there's no teeth in it, they're not
Absolutely.
gonna do anything.
I agree.
That's what I'm going through.
I
So-
agree.
So that's what's so important that's what's really great about having a city like the Kanban. It's great that we have ordinances that we can establish,
on.
and we have a police force to educate and to tell people, hey, you know.
I
don't wanna
want an ordinance. I agree.
So
We
but-
want an
but-
ordinance.
but
It's what's
what-
in
what
it.
we
It's
don't-
what's
what-
in it.
And like you said, we don't want to give a bunch of fines out. What
No.
we want to do is educate
Right
and
on.
say, hey, if you see an officer, you'll probably quiet down.
Well, you know, in the 3 years that the one that has been next door, we've only called authorities once. And that was when that frat party
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah.
And they were up all night long. Yes.
so are we saying that if a family-owned Airbnb makes rules, that if it's not within the city ordinance for residential or for Airbnbs, whatever, then those rules can't be enforced by law? It has to be the contact person has to then go and say, you're not following the rules of our Airbnb, so you gotta get out? Is that what we're saying, that it's really not a point of law if they're not following those rules that the owner created?
The
Yeah,
police,
I
the
don't
police wouldn't
I don't
enforce.
rules.
Okay,
So I only enforce the ordinance. If
Right.
someone has rules, I don't know, you can't swim naked in the pool, right? I can't go and enforce that unless there's some other law that would violate that, right?
Yeah.
So-
right.
We can only enforce the
The
ordinance.
ordinance.
Right, well, that's
the whole
what-
thing.
Well,
So
that's why when Dorothy said they have the rules, that's why I asked that question, because if they just have rules, the people choose whether or not they follow them,
Exactly.
obviously.
The police don't have to get, I'm sorry. The police
Exactly.
don't have to get involved.
Right.
If
They follow the
I
rules.
have, if I'm in an Airbnb, the neighbor who lives with the occupant, I'm at an Airbnb, and the rule is 10 o'clock, you're inside.
Mhm.
My neighbor's gonna know that, and my neighbor, or the neighbor, the Airbnb neighbor, can call the owner and say, hey, your people left trash out, and they were loud at 10 o'clock. What do you think the owner's gonna do? When it's in their rules?
Depends on the owner.
There's-
Depends on the owner.
But that's outside the purview of our discussion here. You know, that's their
But you're making it-
administrative issue.
I
We,
don't-
what you're getting to is if the city has rules, what we talked about is when someone signs up for an Airbnb and they register, we would then give them the list of rules that are specific to the city so that the renter is not, ignorant, if you would, to the special ordinances that we have in the city, that being the decimal rating, if it is, or, you can't swim naked in the pool. I know you love that one. So, yeah, I mean, whatever rules that is created, that would be the rules that the city's enforcing. And then that way, if someone gets called, they're not gonna refund the deposit because someone had to come out and help enforce it.
Hopefully.
But there could be other ways that we can encourage Airbnbs to make rules, like through our contract with our Visit Martindale. That contract says, please on your webpage, would you please put a proposed set of rules that say X as part of the contract that we're paying for or
Why can't you
something,
do that? Do that.
And then if they want to get it listed, maybe the Visit Martindale on their own volition would say, guys, if you want to get listed, you should adopt this template of rules for our community. Or there might be other ways other than an ordinance to solve the problem that the city can help facilitate in a way. Because it becomes very difficult to legislate people to be good neighbors. You come up with a complex web of rules, not 65 decibels, this hour, and then it gets applied broadly, and then it gets messy. I don't know. I would be curious to get Kemp's take on it, but my suspicion is that he would advise the city not to go that far in its.
As far as an ordinance?
As far as an
I
ordinance.
disagree.
And because it presents challenges, both in an enforcement aspect and whether it would hold up because the rules are not broadly applied.
Well, other cities do it. I mean,
We could look at what other cities do.
we got
We
Lockhart.
could look at what other cities' actual ordinances are and
We
compare those
have.
to their city ordinances and.
I think we need an
We
ordinance.
have.
We need an ordinance because I'm repeating myself.
Have an ordinance, but you want to strengthen it.
You want to change the language of this ordinance.
Matthew wanted to say something.
Okay, I just want to give you guys a little update. I did some work on the hotel taxes and stuff. I called Airbnb and I tried to set the city up to have an administrative account with Airbnb. So we could actually monitor the 40 odd that I know of that are in the city limits ETJ. The guy basically said, well, and he's in Austin, so he's Texas, kind of guy. He said, I've got something that you might like even better. He says, I have gotten these cities to pass an ordinance that says that you will force us, Airbnb and Vrbo, to do all of the tax collecting for you. Because the state makes us do it already. So he sent me an email, and I'll hand this out. This is the ordinance that he used from another town close to us. I've got plenty of them. I mean, sorry, you guys. And so basically there's verbiage on the second page that goes over the,
Will you give me another one?
it goes, I just want to show you because you're the most important right here.
Oh, thank
Yeah, but no.
Well, you're the one gonna write.
Wait a second.
He's the one who's gonna write it, honey. So, you're not gonna write it. He's gonna write it. So.
That's true. That is.
Well, that
important.
case.
So if you go to, the third page, which is section 11-05004, says filing of reports, payment of tax collected. So there's obviously, this is an ordinance that was done in a town, I don't even know, Leon Valley, Texas.
Yes, I understand.
And yeah, he was, he said, basically, if you go down to the I think it's the third line, such short-term rental listing service shall pay over the tax due on such occupancy at the time of filing such report. There shall also be furnished to the tax collector of the city at the time of the payment of such a copy of the tax report filed with the state controller in connection with the state hotel occupancy tax. And then, of course, it gets to the violation in 11.5-006. If the rental listing service or person is required by the provision article, they'll go basically enforce it that way. It doesn't take away from people that are doing the rentals, from their own, friends and family are like, Craig and Wendy that are doing a venue and then, they're doing those, obviously they're not going through Vrbo or Airbnb, they still have to file their own. But this would take care of, I think, at least 90, if not more % of the actual collection that is involved. And I talked to him and he said, yeah, you just give us the map and give us the addresses and this is the best way to do it. Now, as far as getting information for the look back, he said, talk to me next week, but start with this. So I just pitch it to you guys that this is something we're going to update the ordinance, that this would solve a whole lot of that collection issue that we were having an issue a year ago about. I know, Sonia, we had a discussion about that extensively about it. He basically says, this works. So.
I'd like to see it, and I know this is not for an action item tonight, that I would like to see though, this draft of an ordinance, or if we tweak it more, that we should present this to the current hotel tax people that are contributing to the $44,000 that we have now. None of them are being represented tonight because one of the thing in the Airbnb thing that I read was like a limit of 2 adults per bedroom. I mean, that could severely affect some of our Airbnb folks that may have.
That's a fire safety issue.
But we have probably Airbnbs now that have 2 queen-size beds in there and you've got 4 adults in there.
But most of the times when you have within the residential building codes, a certain occupancy by bedroom in terms of egress, ingress, the size of the hallways, the size of the doorways, all these other things that go into it. So a standard, residential home is only built to accommodate so many people per bedroom and so many people per house. Going beyond that starts violating those codes that are there as a safety measure. So you don't have overcrowding issues or in an emergency, somebody being seriously hurt or injured or worse.
But it seems like if we want to make it safer for these Airbnbers in terms of even families, that there's no limitation of children in these rooms. I mean, we're only saying 2 adults per bedroom, but what if they've got 5 kids and, you want all the kids to run out? I mean, even the place that's next to Mike and the mayor here, if you went into one of the rooms there that is not even a designated bedroom, they must have 4 bunk beds in there where they've got 8 people sleeping in bunk beds in one room. And so that house accommodates probably 15 people.
It's listed as, I thought it was 16.
It was
16 people.
18 at one time.
18 people, and now we're.
You think 30 is probably
And
right.
sometimes they have tents too.
So,
outside.
so now we're saying we're only gonna limit it to, I mean, and I don't even know if at the schoolhouse, if they have 2 queen-size beds, say, in one bedroom, but I think those people, such as, the schoolhouse, the people next to the mayor, our Airbnb next to the, soup kitchen. I mean, we have these people that have been responsible, dedicated people paying towards the Airbnb tax. They should be giving us input. They should have been notified of us working on this ordinance, and I would not want to make any final resolutions without consulting and giving accommodation to these people that have paid money so far into this fund.
Okay, I want to clarify, they have not paid a penny.
Who's
They do
that?
not pay. The customer pays. They do not pay a penny. Clarify, please. Point of order. They do not pay. This is the tax. Okay? This is a tax that is levied on the person who visits. Okay? This is not a tax on the individual property owner. Okay? So I'm being a little butthead about it. I'm
No,
sorry, but you know what I mean, but
I'm saying.
does it affect their business? Of course.
It affects them
course.
directly, because if we're saying in this ordinance that we're only allowing 2 adults per bedroom, and they have set up multiple bunk beds or 2 queen-size beds, I just want their in.
Airbnb also has standards with regard to that, and so does Vrbo. They have
Yeah,
to
they
prove, they have to prove the number of beds. When they register, that's part of the process. You have to take pictures and prove the number of beds, and they have a standard that they have. Okay?
Then how could someone be up there at that house with 18 people in there that is in a room that is not even a dedicated bedroom? It's like a garage.
It's
where
converted garage.
It's a converted garage
Yeah.
where they've got 4 bunk beds in there. So how does that qualify?
Yeah, it does.
Well,
So how is
how-
Airbnb allowing them to do that if they know that?
They have
and
enough
it is
room to- they have enough room to
advertised as
leave.
such?
They have enough room to exit. That's the issue, is a safety issue. They have enough room to exit the room and get to an exit. If you're in a bedroom that's 400 square feet and you got to trying to put 2 beds in a 400 or 500 square foot room, now you're having a problem. You know what I mean? I mean, that's where the issue is. Can you leave the one side of the bed and get out? That's what they're proving.
Joy has a word.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I haven't seen the proposed ordinance, but I hope there's some kind of requisite for a window. Because in my former house, the current owner converted this large walk-in closet into a bedroom.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Oh,
So I would put a requisite in the window, just for fire and egress.
Yeah. The house I rented from Airbnb in New Braunfels, there was a closet that was a bedroom. So it only had one small
Wow.
door to walk in and out. It was a walk-in closet, so there was square footage of a little, but there was no air circulation, ventilation, there was nothing.
and we can talk about, I know in the city it's not a problem, but in other properties, when they're on a septic tank, they're on the river and they got 20 people on there, that could be an environmental issue. Because that septic tank's not designed for 18 people, it's designed for 4 people. It's just another thing. I mean, again, I'm not against Airbnb. I'm not. But if they're run properly and the people are responsible, it's not a problem. It's when they take advantage and they make party houses, then we have a problem. That's why I think we need to have an ordinance to protect the town and the citizens from party houses. I mean, we need to be graceful. I totally agree. So this is just conversation. We're gonna have more input.
Yeah.
Can I ask one other question though about the violation of if you violate a certain ordinance that you will not have the ability to renew the Airbnb after 1 year when they want to renew it for the next year? I think in the reading here, it said, if they violate any ordinance. Now, to me, that means if where the Airbnb is, if they don't mow their grass, then they violated an ordinance and then you may not renew their contract because, so how does that wording, if you could clarify that, or somebody, Jared, about the violation, how you won't renew it if they violate any ordinance. Now, shouldn't it be any ordinance pertaining to the Airbnb and not saying any ordinance within the city? Like if they don't pick up a spilled garbage can or if they don't.
If you want to pull it back.
By the way, this is Lockhart's wording.
Well,
you're
I mean,
reading.
But we can change it.
I know, I'm just wondering
Doesn't
until
make it
you,
perfect.
yeah, I know,
This is
exactly.
just a-
Of the,
But it's where is it where it said if they violate any,
it's related to.
it says or any ordinance.
Excuse me for just a moment. There have been about 4 or 5 or 6 people talking at the same time. And y'all don't even realize it. And I just had to tell everybody.
Thank you.
It's only related to conduct on the premise.
Where is it here?
The last part of 3A is relating to conduct on the premise.
No, it's farther down from that. It says the violation of, it's the renewal of the contract.
That's
isn't-
it, right
That's what
there.
it talks about in B is the renewal.
Right here, right.
Such
violation on the premises.
Was there
It's
something that you
highlighted
read,
in
any ordinance though? No.
Yeah, it says-
It doesn't
was
say
somewhere else.
any.
It says, 3A, the registration had pled no contest or been convicted of a violation of any ordinance of the city or state, federal on the premise or has permitted such violation on the premises by any person. They may be suspended, grounds for suspension, revocation, or
Yeah, it's there. Any ordinance.
at that location.
But at that location.
Right,
what
it could be
at
not
the
cutting the
Airbnb,
grass.
If they haven't mowed their grass, and that's the city ordinance, that says any ordinance. So if the Airbnb people don't mow their grass, that could be a violation of the city ordinance.
Yes.
And you're
Correct.
saying that you're not gonna renew their contract
Well,
because they didn't
That's
mow their
what,
grass?
that's what the draft says, yes.
Well, I don't like that. I mean, you're saying if someone doesn't mow their
We don't
grass,
have to have that in there.
that you're.
You don't
you're
get,
not
you don't get a
gonna renew their
violation,
contract?
it's not, you don't get a violation
Take
the
it
first
out.
time. You get a warning, hey, you need to take care of it. You're talking about someone who actually said,
When
to
has
the
city
Canotas.
followed up on any
Okay.
ordinance that we have given warnings to, that we have followed up in the past year?
I'm
When
not,
have
I'm
we
not
followed
aware.
up on any
We
warning
have
of
done
any
it numerous
ordinance?
times. Okay, let's, I think this
so,
is
so
a
you like
really
the part
good
about collecting the
start.
money though, are you okay with that? That's all I care about, you know?
I
Sorry.
think this is a really good start to
It
the
is a good start.
conversation. And Matthew, I
Lively
really
discussion.
appreciate this part of it because it doesn't look like it was really addressed in this other,
You have a plan.
in the Lockhart ordinance. So we'll probably have to go back and kind of work the two together.
Here, you take mine.
And if y'all could give your
Yeah,
feedback,
there you go.
give your feedback in writing to Jared, Deanna, and myself, and then we can work on it. And so this is the first talk that we've been talking about it. Because I know even back to Lisa Allen, she was trying to figure out how to collect the tax because there's so many people who are not actually paying it. So I think that this is a good start and we should go ahead and move on. We've got two more items to do. So 4.3 is consider the motion to approve ordinance 2024-08-1,
2 times.
Oh my goodness. regulating traffic control in the Martindale City Parks. What is it that's breaking?
I'm
It's
flipping.
flipping off the side of the desk.
Oh,
He doesn't know his own strength.
That's right.
He's a muscular man.
That's right.
He's a muscular
Manly
man.
man.
That's right.
He's having.
okay, so this ordinance is in your packet. And as you know, we've had some trouble with parking in the park. So we're just trying to tighten it up. So
Basically,
we've added to it.
yeah, it's basically a no double parking. You can't park somebody in that in such a way that would prevent them from leaving.
Could you explain A then, because it's not written quite, it seems strange to me the way it's written, but if you could explain that then.
He probably should have the word except in parking areas.
I mean,
Wait,
you're
where,
saying-
wait,
No.
show me where we are.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, it's unlawful for any person to operate or park a motor vehicle. No, you can't, to operate. I think you're supposed to say to operate a motor vehicle, blah, blah, except, in a parking area.
No, but
So
then
it's
it
up to that
says you
effect.
can't
Just
park
strike
in the
it.
park, but then it says you can if you pay. That's what it's implying. Parking areas are restricted to persons using the city park.
The goal was for them not to use the ATVs or something, or the motorcycle outside of the parking area.
I
That
think,
That
I
doesn't
think,
say that.
I understand that.
It says you can't park in the park if you have a motor vehicle,
if I
an
may,
RV, or a motorcycle. That's what it says.
if I may, just strike the entire thing because it's covered in the other rules that we have for the park.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it's there.
So, do
So
we
we're
need a motion
striking
to
A
strike A?
altogether?
I need a motion to strike A.
I'll make a motion to strike A from whatever ordinance this is, the ordinance regarding to regulate parking controls at the Martindale City Parks.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second
Wait,
that.
Nick, did you have? anything?
I'm just saying, we'll make the motion, you have to get through the rest of it.
Well, then we want to eliminate that.
Well, yeah,
to
but there
start.
could be other things.
But that's okay. We can do this one thing. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to strike A from this ordinance. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's out.
Who seconded? Did we catch?
Matthew, I mean, Mike.
Second.
Started with an M.
No person shall.
MM somebody.
Now we gotta change all the other letters.
Any other comments? Or
There was the
discussion?
one about the curb where you're parking against the curb. Let's see, no person shall double park adjacent to another vehicle that is already parked at the curb or an edge of the street. Well, we have no curbs in any of our parks. So that doesn't apply. We have no curbs in phase one. We have no streets in phase one park. So
phase one has a park, has a street, I mean, it's gravel road. And then in and out, and then in the parking area, there are curbs in the form of telephone poles laid on the ground and fastened to the ground. So
that's very loose to call a telephone pole on the ground a curb.
The nature of it
That is
though.
a-
You have a different term that you would use? Like, what's a different term that would be better?
Parking barriers, parking
All right,
barriers.
barrier.
Fine.
A parking
That's fine.
barrier, not a curb. I mean,
Okay.
we don't have any curbs in Allen Bates Park. We don't have any curbs in phase one park.
And go ahead and make a motion to change that to barriers.
So we're
Parking barriers.
if I may, curb, comma, barrier, comma, or edge of street.
Fabulous. I've never heard better.
Okay, then we don't have to have a motion.
Fantastic.
Also, what I think I've been seeing is particularly in both of the parks is that people do double park in order to prevent the one car that is supposed to be getting towed from, so it doesn't really say the cars that are blocking the ones that are preventing them from being towed are not at times blocking traffic. It's preventing the other vehicle from being towed. There are two people that came together at the park. Their friend is blocking the other car to prevent it from being towed, whether it's blocking traffic, blocking a pedestrian walkway, or whatever. We have,
No person shall park any vehicle in a manner that prevents one or more vehicles from exiting or entering the public facility. That's what that means sorry to interrupt, but that's what that means.
okay,
Yeah,
I know, it doesn't just say, hey, you can't double park.
Okay.
It doesn't say that. It's lawyerese,
yeah.
for lack of a better phrase. But it's there. I read this several times.
okay.
I read it the last time before the
I
meeting.
like the clarity.
Oh, but you read A.
And
No, I knew that one. I already had that one down. Sam and I talked about that at the beginning. He goes, did you read A? I said, yeah.
Maybe it was a really long night.
A big question mark.
Okay.
Any more discussion on this order?
So we're not worrying about people driving fast, or there's no speed limits in the park currently, right?
We're talking about parking.
Parking, we're only talking about parking, okay. So that's the only problem I had was with A. The rest seems.
And then on E, we would change it to
To
parked
barrier.
at the
Curb, comma, barrier.
curb barrier or edge of the street. Okay.
No person
Would
shall
someone
block.
like to make a motion to pass this?
Is there anything, well, let me just ask, I'm sorry, about blocking a handicap, okay, a handicap, you can't block that.
Okay.
No, how about blocking a handicap parking space or blocking a porta potty? We have people blocking the porta potty a lot.
That was a scene from a movie, wasn't it? Didn't they do that? They left somebody in the porta potty by parking right up against it.
Can you let them?
What?
I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm just saying, I've seen it at phase one a lot where cars park too close to the handicap porta potty, and it makes it difficult to get in and out of that porta potty because the car is blocking the porta potty. That's
No, you didn't make a comment to my joke about,
Okay.
and you let them?
I don't enforce anything. I'm very careful about that.
No.
Now, yeah.
Wait,
What we could always do is put a T-post
Yeah.
right, just in front of the door swing so that no car can come in right there.
Okay,
Sounds good.
that's it. That's all I'll say for that.
Okay. All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to accept this ordinance?
I'll make a motion to accept this ordinance.
Thank
I guess I
you.
gotta read it, which means I gotta be able to see this small print.
Sorry.
An ordinance by the city of Martindale, city council to regulate parking controls at Martindale City Parks.
I'll second that.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right. Moving on to the last item is a motion to approve ordinance 2024-08-01. We're gonna have to change these numbers a little bit because since we have two on the same day, they can't have the same number. We usually do -01 and -02. So this is to regulate parking at Skull Road Bridge River access. And that we've already voted to have parking there. This ordinance is just to finalize that action.
I had a question about that first sentence there. How does implementing parking prevent pedestrian fatalities? How does implementing parking prevent pedestrian fatalities?
Have you ever tried to get out of a car while it's moving?
I just don't see the connection between saying, if we're implementing.
9:28, the
parking,
meeting went
that
off the
we're
rails.
we're preventing pedestrian.
Okay, let
fatalities.
me try to address that. So one of the things we were trying to make safer there is we were gonna restrict parking along Northwest River Road. And by having the parking, Sacedos, then tow people who parked along Northwest River Road. And we would have paid parking at Shill Crossing. On all the maps, it's called Shill, so we're gonna continue that.
Ordinance is on the works.
Okay, so I have an issue with, B. You have the word regular park hours, which we can't use, regular park hours.
Yeah, we need to find the
And then
time.
the second item would be $10 per vehicle and or trailer. Because if they have a trailer, it should be two. Would that qualify for a double bill?
Wait, where is the second?
I say and or trailer, or,
Well, that's what.
no, it has to say,
He wants to add.
you have to say per vehicle
Oh, I see. I get
So
it.
instead of.
and
regular
trailer.
Park hours, we need to find
Just put a
what
time.
hours they can park there.
Yeah. Yeah, it just needs to have the numbers in there.
I was talking to the chief about it earlier today, and Skulls, a lot of fishermen use that area and canoers, and they get there early. And we kind of thought about maybe make it 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. You're allowed to park 6 to 9. And then 9 to 6, you're not allowed to park. That's closed. It's closed for parking. So.
Are there like designated fisherman hours anywhere?
No, but typically the fishermen, the canoers start early. So.
Yeah.
So that would, what we don't want to do is penalize people. Usually it's 8 o'clock. They want to come earlier to
Get out
to
there.
get out to run their shuttle or go fish. They run their shuttle. So I think it needs to be 6 to 9.
Mhm.
6 a.m.
Well,
to
the
9
problem with that,
p.m.
you got winter.
6 a.m.
So
6 a.m.
I think it's just easier to find it.
Yeah, because the paddlers and the fishermen are coming early.
Yeah, so
But after dark, after 9 o'clock, we don't want people
yeah, we don't
parking
want
there.
people parking there. So I think that would be, and specific, that way dusk to dawn's kind of, change during the year, it makes it easy that way. 6 to 9, so I recommend doing that. And we need to eliminate, it's on a park, so, we just say between 6 and 9.
Yeah, she's just correcting it. And after the $10, it's $10 per vehicle,
Or per space, how about per space?
per vehicle. Would you just say plus? Per vehicle and trailer?
Yeah.
per vehicle and trailer. That would mean if they had,
Well, I don't know. When you just said that, I was thinking, oh, it's $10 for your vehicle and your trailer.
Yeah, it includes both instead
No.
of paying for each.
Yeah,
no,
so
so
it
it's-
is-
that's what I'm saying. I don't know the verbiage. I just know we
Right.
want to have
For each
Say
vehicle.
for
and-
each, yeah.
for each vehicle and each trailer.
Yeah, the problem is that trailer's taking an extra spot.
That's what I'm saying.
Sometimes
It's
you need
$20,
to
$10
define
each.
$10.
that the trailer is separate.
Well, why don't you try doing it the way he just said it, where you're defining it by the spot and not by the
Space.
trailer? Because that's really all you care about.
Yeah,
You don't
but-
care if it's a trailer, if it's a bus, if it's a whatever.
That's fake.
If it's
It's
in more than
subjective.
one parking space,
Space.
it needs to have, it needs to
Thanks
pay
for that.
twice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you go to Lowe's, they have truck trailer parking spaces. That's only one space.
Yeah, but do we?
You don't have them lined up. So I
I say
suggest
space.
we be a little specific.
Go ahead, Nick.
I have a question.
I just called on him. That is your job. I am so sorry. I am so
Are
sorry.
they parallel parking there at school, or is it gonna be a pull-in?
Oh.
Pull in, a trailer, you're right with a trailer,
So
you can't, they can't pull in.
You need to address that too, that needs to be, they're gonna have to figure that one out.
The only way you're gonna really fix that is by paving it and striping it.
That's why we need like I said, it's like, you're right, Nick, I mean, but that's why we need to say, you took two spaces.
Most of the year, it doesn't matter, but it
Yeah.
does in the
It
summer.
should also just say $10 for vehicle and for trailer.
You can say it that way, or
That's
per
what I read.
space.
Or $10 for each vehicle and $10 for each
How
trailer.
about $5
Yeah,
per
like-
axle?
You're getting technical, aren't you?
No.
I'm flexible on whatever you think.
Okay.
I'm flexible on it.
Time out.
$2.
Kidding, just kidding.
I looked into the price of a parking stop. I would like to see the parking lot prior to us starting to charge to make some improvements there and not have it to where anyone that parks there is paying $10. We haven't implemented the changing in the direction of the roads. We have not striped anything. We don't have any trail coming down from the parking lot going down to the bridge. And so if we're gonna start charging for have people parking there, do we expect them to still walk down those roads with no safety measures in place? Are we putting the cart this way before the horse by not implementing any safety procedures first? And we're just gonna start to park and let's just start to collect the money and sort of work it out? Because an example of a speed limit sign that has not been fixed in the city of Martindale, if you drive past GoGo Storage, that 30 speed limit sign has been sitting at a 60-degree angle for weeks. We don't even have a stop sign at Quail Run and Northwest Road. I bought with
We're
the money.
attempting to fix all
Yeah,
of
but
those.
I bought that breakaway stop sign by the monies from the city almost 2 years ago. We have
No, it hasn't.
it has been 2 years
No, it
ago,
hasn't.
well, it's been at least a year. There has been no stop sign there for probably 2 years now. And so why are we rushing to do all this when we all voted to make it safer first? We need to make it safer first and then.
Need the
start
money to do
charge.
it.
Well,
And it's
then
real
just wait,
unsafe now.
then just wait.
I do have a consideration of why. I don't know about the rest of you, but in my city council account this week, I got, an onslaught
Mhm.
of prior emails forwarded that were all from concerned citizens who were begging to have the parking returned to that particular spot. And they were saying they don't mind paying, there's not a problem. They are happy to do that. They just want to be able to go ahead and park there again. And so they're directly asking us for it. And so I feel like we need to go ahead and do that. And then we can make a plan for the rest of it. Because really tonight, what we're supposed to just be focusing on is the ordinance about parking and how we're going to do that, because it already passed. And then what we're gonna do to clean up the area, which I completely agree has to happen and needs to be taken care of and planned out and accomplished, isn't really part of this like, they don't necessarily need to be tied together. They just both need to happen. So.
Exactly.
Since the people have already said, please, 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 just let us get the parking lot back. I feel kind of compelled to do that and then also work on the rest of it.
Well, we've had
And we'll
the
get the
parking lot
revenue.
back
We'll
ever
get the
since we
revenue.
took the fence down, though. We have had the parking
Well,
lot
and
back.
this will help us with revenue to
Which we need.
go ahead and clean it up.
So we want to change this to, after the $10 to say per car and or trailer?
Or you could say per vehicle and then in parentheses say
Trailer
a
separate.
trailer is a separate fee, or you could say.
I think it's
yeah.
gonna have to be clear.
What do you think?
Additional charge.
Chief, what do you think?
Yeah.
Trailer is additional charge, additional $10.
Yeah, trailer is an additional $10.
How do you think, Chief? Chief, how should we change this to include trailers? That you're
They'll rub
enforcing
the toe on that, get trailer in the.
space or trailer?
I say per space, something words of that nature, so that you know that if you pull a trailer up there and drop it, because you can't park a trailer there without dropping it, or you'd be in the road.
Well, and they're not gonna wanna drop it because somebody will steal
Well,
it.
they have locks and stuff.
Well, what they
Or they're
could,
gonna park sideways, yeah.
they could do sideways.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. They're gonna do sideways today. That's only one space. You don't have it lined up.
So that'd be two, so space, we call this.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you just say space and they decide to
I
go
think-
sideways, you can't, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
How
subjective.
about if you said per
Vehicle.
space, and then you could say a vehicle towing a trailer must pay for 2 spaces.
That sounds good to me. Go for it.
Well, they have to remove the
No,
trailer.
no.
They have to remove the trailer to park in
I
that
thought we talked
spot.
about it one time, somehow numbering those spots there, I don't.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We had some
Oh,
discussion.
I do remember that a long time ago.
That's not what's included in this, fortunately.
Yeah,
You asked him, he just told you his opinion.
I wanted to buy parking stops and number them from this day one, because I saw they run about $25 a piece, and it would prevent people from driving off that cliff and driving down if there were parking stops there. That's safe.
And it would let them know it would be easier on Park Mobile, because there you enter an actual spot, so. you say, hey, I'm parked. This is my vehicle, I'm parked in spot number 2.
Yeah.
And so if they do make a mistake on their license plate number like we've had.
Right.
It wouldn't be an
So-
issue.
so-
That's a good point.
so real quick, so you'd say if you had 2 spots, you'd have to say, you have to pay the app for spot 2 and 3.
Correct.
If you have a trailer.
I think we get 20 spots in there.
How are you gonna enforce this whenever, I mean, how are you gonna say, hey, somebody's gonna have to be down there at 6:30 every morning, or everybody's gonna be parking sideways? How they've been parking for the last 50 years down there. Like, there's nobody down there saying, hey, you gotta take that trailer off, back it in, and you have to park next to it.
Well, right now, they've been pretty respectful because they can park along Northwest River Road. And so they don't unhook their trailer, but there's gonna have to be
You're gonna have-
signage and
Signage, and then you're also gonna either have to
Well,
mark it out.
Cattle prod.
It's gonna take 60 days to get the Park Mobile sign, so
yeah, so
Step one,
we've got
we
them.
need to get the signs ordered.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what happened last time. We got everything done. You remember March, and then we got the signs in June, and they didn't go up until after July 4th, so.
It all just takes time.
So we just get it going.
Can we get the new Park Mobile signs for phase 1, the ones that were defaced by the graffiti, the ones that are of cardboard? We still haven't replaced those. Can we get
They've
those?
been ordered a
Months
couple of
ago.
times.
Months ago.
We should think about doing the numbering spots everywhere then.
Cause
It
that's
would
what,
be too hard down there.
Oh, it
In
would.
phase 1,
Just-
yeah.
It would be tough.
Oh.
Yeah,
In Howard Bates it'd be easy.
That's good.
In Howard Bates, it'd be
Easier.
Easy, because all you have to do is hang them on the cable.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'd
well,
say
what
And
were you talking about, Sam? The park? You
Parking
said-
stops.
So a park stop, could we put a number on that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
that's
You can
actually a
paint it
good idea.
right on the
Yeah.
park, and we would have, 20 parking spaces there? I'm starting to sound like I agree with this, right?
We already know.
We sneak up on you like that. We sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Mike, are you happy?
I'm always happy.
Shoot. I'm starting to say, if we have a
Falling into
designated
the
amount
trap.
of parking spaces with parking stops that are numbered, we need that there.
Well,
And
could we do
I
that in phase 1 also?
We're not ahead
What,
Did we
Terry?
do that in phase one also, or was that too hard to
No.
do?
No,
It's
they,
too hard to do.
they
But
would
maybe,
just
but that
wash
could be a
away.
goal.
Those would
That
just
could be a
wash
goal
away.
We
as
could
we
do it
expand.
in,
It's a goal.
we
That's
could do
right.
it in, Allen Bay.
Okay.
But
We
in phase
could
one,
make-
they, excuse me, sorry, they would just get washed away in the
Yeah.
flood or covered.
Oh, stop that. But with the park people, with the park committee making their new master planning stuff of like what, that could be a goal of, they can think about like in the future as we develop the areas, maybe we could find a way to outsmart that nasty flood.
Not even walk out Skull Bridge.
What was that?
And only talking about all the parks, the agenda and Skull Bridge.
Two
Not
different
ours, other parks.
Yeah, Skull, the Shrill Crossing is not a park.
So stop talking about
Yeah,
Especially, excuse me.
yeah,
We do this all the time.
yeah, we do this all the
We're
time.
having brilliant brainstorms here.
Okay, is
Until
everyone satisfied with the
Yes.
changes?
I am.
But I just
Looks
had-
good to me.
We like it.
Okay, if everybody's satisfied with the changes, I'd like a motion, please.
Go, Terry. This is your job.
It's-
You
Are
ran
we
for
gonna call the
this.
ordinance the same thing?
Yeah,
We
change
No,
it.
it's gotta
Well,
be
he's
B
made
or
the
2.
changes up there.
Okay, well, I make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-8-1, an ordinance of the city council of the city of Martindale. What? The city, Texas, amending the ordinance to regulate parking at designated pay for parking zones determined by the Martindale City Council. Control past April 6th, 2023.
There is a typo in the word ordinance. I mean, I'm not trying to be
Was it
picky.
2023?
Yeah, that
That's
is.
what it said.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Was it?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion that? Where's the typo? Somebody needs a last word or something?
Just to fix the word ordinance.
It says ordinance.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Misspelled.
We
Ordinance.
can fix those
Anytime.
non-substantive
Typos.
issues.
Got it.
We'll just earmark
Yeah.
it so we know.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
I,
And any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at, what time? is it?
9:44.
9:44.
I'll second that.
So we're not done.
Oh, no, we're not done. We have another meeting.
Oh, God.
Oh, my goodness.
No.
Okay.
All in favor of adjourning
All
this
in
matter?
favor,
Yay.
say aye.
I want to
Okay.
go home.